From the broken ruins of Babylon, this is End of Days Radio. I am your host, Daniel, broadcasting to you all the way from the shimmering Emerald City, right here in the heart of the Pacific Northwest. Hello, how are you? Today's date is Saturday, March 4th, 2023. It is so good to see you guys. We're doing it. We're doing what we promised. We are coming at you with at least one live show per week. Shout out to Placebo Rock in the chat. He is here almost every week. A big thank you to him for being a consistent participant on this program. Love you, love you. As you know, you can go to endofdaysradio.com to catch up on all things End of Days Radio, including an updated guest list. That website is going to be going through a little bit of an overhaul soon, so stay tuned for that. Last week's show was a hit. We talked to Todd the Bod. We had a little bit of a stop-in by Logan. A lot of mixed reactions for Logan. Some people absolutely loved him, and some were a little turned off, but I would say it's about 80-20. 80% absolutely loved him, so we'll definitely be talking to Logan again on this program. And we want to get Todd back on here again, too. Todd did not have enough time to talk, so some people were complaining about that. Placebo Rock says, no more Logan, please. He's not a Logan fan. What can I say? You love him or you hate him, but I actually enjoyed Placebo Rock's comments. They were quite funny, although I do love Logan. So today's guest, let's get down to it, is going to be Nina Howell. From the deep south of Houston, I introduced the author of Thereal Chronicles, digital content consultant, creative developer of Thereal Realms, the poet of sonnets, quantum messaging expert, and mixologist of music, Miss Nina Howell. Let's go ahead and bring her on. And go.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome to End of Days Radio.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Absolutely. That's an interesting picture you have behind you. Is that the Golden Gate Bridge or something like that?
It is, yeah, it's something British.
All right. Oh, it's London Bridge.
Yes.
Maybe. Okay. And it looks like you got a calendar behind you too. I like that. It's good to stay organized.
Yeah, it's definitely good. I'm actually borrowing the office, so thanks for letting me borrow your office.
Thank you to the mysterious office lender. Thank you for helping End of Days Radio.
Roommate.
Oh, okay. Roommate. It looks like you got some coffee there too. Big fan of coffee myself.
Coffee. Something to keep me energized.
Is it not coffee? Is it tea? Come and take it. I like that.
It's definitely, it's actually margarita.
What?
Yes.
Holy crap. Okay. Drinking on a Saturday.
Oh my God, I know, I'm wild.
So Nina, you are calling from, well, you are broadcasting in from Houston, am I right?
Yes, the big city, space city.
All right. It's a little bit later there. It's like 5 o'clock.
Yeah, when you said 3, I was like, oh yeah, 3, and like now I'm like, oh, it's margarita time.
All right. Well, that works for me. Yeah. A lot of people like to drink on this program. I've done it a few times myself. Although it's hard when I get to the phase where I have to actually edit the show and I'm just smash, and it's really difficult because I have to sort things out. So let's talk about your background. Have you always lived in Houston?
No, I moved here when I was 12. I grew up in Colorado, Denver, Colorado, Aurora, Colorado. It's like a little plains area, kind of like Kansas, terrain-wise, and raised by my grandmother and my mother. And they, I think they did a pretty stand-up job. But I moved here when I was Houston in 1999. So it was almost 2000, but we moved here and I've been here ever since. I love
Okay.
this city. It's definitely, if you ever get a chance to come visit, definitely come visit.
Yeah, definitely. So as we know, you are somebody that is interested in psychic abilities.
Definitely, yes. Telepathy, quantum biology, they all kind of like correlate and go hand in hand. So yeah, I've done a lot of studying, only because I've tapped into that part of my brain, I guess, in the last 4 years. So definitely telepathy and psychic abilities, all of the above.
Shout out to Charlie in the chat. We're doing wonderful. Thank you for joining us. So, Nina, at what point growing up did you realize that you had an interest in this sort of thing and in a higher sensory perception or ESP or a sixth sense? There's so many different ways to describe it. When did you start to tune into, hey, this might actually be a real thing?
Well, yeah. Well, I always loved horror movies, like scary movies, and they always had like the witches and like the occult kind of thing. And so I studied that just as a hobby when I was a little kid. I was a weird kid. I studied the occult and like astrology and Wicca and all kinds of stuff. But I was just, that's I started somewhere, and then it just grew to trying to figure it out scientifically when I actually started developing psychic abilities. So
So,
that didn't it was like 15 years of me just like believing in anything and everything magic. I mean, even like Harry Potter, I'm like, I wish there was a realm, like there was a dimension where these people exist. And then I started learning about quantum biology and just the science alone. It kind of ties into psychic abilities and evolution of the human genome. So I definitely believe like in everything that talks about people with powers, dating back to like the ancient aliens times.
well, one thing that has always kind of resonated with me, like even when I wasn't really super into stuff like this, was the thing with twins. Like you hear from just about every set of twins that they've had some kind of experience where like one gets burnt by hot water or one gets trapped somehow or they go through something traumatizing and the other one can feel it. And it seems to be
Yeah.
like, yeah, like every set of twins can report some kind of phenomena like this. And if that's possible between twins, I mean, to me, that's always kind of been proof that this stuff is real.
Yes, I mean, well, in the human brain, the hippocampus on the right side of our brain, that is where intuition is, and it actually ties into our digestive system. So, like that, when you get that spidey sense that something's going on, or I mean, it's just innate in our abilities as a human. It's just kind of, not really talked about as much as I think it should be, and normalized so that people that do have these abilities, they are embraced rather than kind of like put in a closet or like told to be quiet. I was
Yeah,
lucky
that
growing
does.
up. I didn't have that problem.
Yeah, that does seem to be the case. A lot of people that have certain experiences, like you're out driving along in the mountains and you see Bigfoot or you see UFO or something. So many people are just apt to either say or either
Mm-hmm.
not tell anybody about what happened, or they'll preface and say, "Oh, this might have been a hallucination," or "I was really drunk at the time," or it's like almost like they don't even want to believe themselves.
Yes, exactly. And they like I've seen, know, I something explode when I was 12 in the sky in Colorado, and I swear to God it was a UFO or something, but it was so close. It was just a phenomenon. Like it was unbelievable. So people see stuff like this all the time, and they sense like other people remotely, like remote sensing, and yeah, just like telepathy in general. I think that the older that we get, like as a species, we'll just develop that. And even just to reference the Bible, when humans used to have like one language, I believe that that was telepathy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, the whole Tower of Babel thing seem to have
Yeah.
kind of like there might be more to that story. Like they say that they separate the languages and all that, but who really knows? I've heard some pretty trippy stuff about the Tower of Babel. I've heard that it's
Hmm.
that it was actually like eight-sided and it was pointed to the have you ever seen those pictures of planet Saturn where they have the
Yeah.
Star of David at the top of it or
Yes.
bottom of it? Yeah, I've heard that
Yeah.
the
And
Tower of Babel was pointed towards that thing.
really, I heard that Jesus went there after he, got mad at everybody on Earth. He's just like, I'm out, peace. I'm going to Saturn.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've heard
It
some
does make
alternate Jesus theories. I heard Jesus was
Yeah.
Japanese and he died in Japan.
Who
That's kind of hard to believe.
knows?
But they actually have a
I don't know.
gravesite there and you can visit it.
Yeah, but there's a different culture, like culturally, there's a different ethnicity of Jesus in every single country. There's like Black Jesus, White Jesus, Japanese Jesus, apparently. um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've got a leaning
pretty
towards
cool.
black Jesus too. Like I've always kind of had that gut feeling Jesus was black. I mean, I don't really know, but there's some
Right.
descriptions that make it seem that way. Plus the area
Yeah,
that they lived, I mean, it seemed very possible. You just,
right. It's like right there by Africa.
yeah, exactly. And that's one of the main things that the Black Hebrews talk about is how like that's where Israel and, the tip of Africa going into the Middle East, that's where all that stuff went
Mhm.
down. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it does make perfect sense.
So, Nina, tell us about Wicca. I'm extremely curious about this. How did you start to get into that?
Um, I just watched a lot of witchcraft movies as a kid, and I thought I want powers, so I'm gonna study this like on a real level. And I would skip science classes, which was so dumb now that I think about it. But it led me to build a character of like going into the occult, and I would go to the library and like check out books at school that surprisingly had books like that of alchemy. And yeah, it just really opened my mind to the possibilities of like different deities, because Wiccas, they believe in all deities, that they all existed. And I'm not a Wiccan anymore. I don't have a religion. I'm just agnostic. It's like if God, a superpower is there. I definitely believe that there is one. I just, I don't think it's just one. I think it's definitely a collective of many. But yeah, that's what Wicca is like, kind of the same concept. And I had spell books, all kinds of stuff. It was a lot of fun. Like just as a kid, I know how to make a voodoo doll, for example. Like I would never make one now just because I've tested it and it doesn't work. But I did test it when I was a kid. It was pretty fun.
Did anybody have a problem with you getting into this? Did you have like a pushback from some of your Christian family members? They tell you, Nina, don't get into that. You're going to summon the devil or you're going to damn yourself. Did you get any of that type of pushback?
No, like I said, I was a weird kid. Like my mom, she got me a Ouija board when I was like 8, and I saw The Exorcist. I'm like, no way, no one's possessing me. So I went and played it like alone, like just to like prove that certain horror stories aren't really true. But I mean, I believe that there's another dimension, definitely, where there are beings that we can communicate with, and even people that have supernatural abilities or psychic abilities, like just in general. They definitely have like access to that quantum dimension or the multiverse. So it kind of is. You study the quantum physics side, you kind of like can tie it into what people meant when they said people have powers, or what people were talking about when people would move things like telekinesis, things of that nature. So it's definitely worth studying when I was young, because now I have like two different perspectives of the whole picture.
Placebo Rock brings up a good point in the chat. There's the line of thought that the fluoride that they're putting in our water and some of the other things that they put into our environment, maybe even including things like the electromagnetic energy and stuff like that. It might actually be suppressing our psychic abilities. I've seen pictures of them show like a crystallization around a person's pineal gland, and that's supposedly from the fluoridated water. How do you feel about that? Do you feel there could be some kind of conspiracy to actually keep our psychic wings clipped, so to speak?
Well, there's only one thing the elite hate and fear, and that is regular people having powers. So of course, I believe that they're definitely um, using chemicals. They're studying, populations. They're definitely doing as much as they can to keep us from evolving. And it's sad because we could be evolving as an entire species, but because a lot of the elites are so selfish, they don't really they want to be first. It's always who's first, right? They're even like that with other countries and our country specifically. And yeah, I definitely believe the government puts things in our anything that they can, like with the chemtrails and everything they can to keep us from being able to hear telepathically or being able to sense things remotely or just in general being able to even time travel like quantum tunneling. So yeah, they're definitely not being as responsible as they should be, and the human race is suffering because of it.
Another thing that kind of comes to mind when we're talking about this sort of thing, and I just sort of heard this in passing the other day. I think I was listening to a podcast or something, but they're talking about King Solomon. And King
Mm-hmm.
Solomon he's a major figure for the elite, like Freemasons and people in those sort of secret societies. He's kind of like a hero for them because he was like a Christian, and then he switched to become a Satanist. I mean, that's not exactly how it went, but that's sort of a rough description. But he had a ring that would allow him to command demons, and it also would allow him to talk to animals. And that really struck a chord with me because I swear sometimes, like when I'm outside in the woods, like certain animals, like birds and stuff like that, I feel almost like I can understand what they're saying, when they're speaking their birdie language. Not that I can understand them directly, but I can sort of get a rough understanding of what they mean, if that kind of makes sense. Like maybe the emotion or something like that. I have to wonder if there's an underlying sort of communication, like some kind of energetic or psychic communication that all living creatures kind of speak. Like we all kind of have that universal language. Maybe that's how it was when before the Tower of Babel incident. There seems to be
Right.
something innate inside of us.
Right. Like just like the Genesis story, and there's the Garden of Eden, and definitely I believe that Adam and Eve could speak with the animals, and that's why they were Adam was chosen to actually name them. I mean, it makes sense because they're communicating, and yeah, I feel the connection with animal spirits, and it's energy. Everything's energy. So um, yeah, like birds, and it doesn't matter what kind of species of animal it is, but we're animals, we're mammals. So we definitely connect on a spiritual level or just an energy level with those beings, whether they're human or not. So you feel like you
Definitely.
can talk to them. It's so funny you say that because I swear like birds follow me and they like, have you ever like just been around like in a Walmart parking lot and they all just kind of like stare, like they're communicating just like humans communicate with each other with their eyes without saying anything at all. So yeah.
Absolutely. I know that there's types of communication that happen through the eyes actually too. Like the pupils will dilate and they'll kind of like flux, and that's
Hmm.
actually a form of communication. Like we might not actually understand what's being said, but I've seen people's eyes do some crazy stuff. And if you like look into somebody's eyes, it's almost like you sort of get in some kind of resonance with them too. Like that's how Dracula hypnotizes. Well, he hypnotizes women that way. He goes, "Ooh, look into my eyes," and then they don't have a chance. He just hits them with the hypnosis.
It's
The
over.
Exactly, it's
Yeah,
over. Then they're
it's
coming into his
possession
creepy
through the
little
eye.
castle.
They're the windows
Exactly.
to the soul.
Yeah, and that's another connection is the whole vampire thing. Like in certain
Hmm.
vampire mythologies, like Well, in the interview with the vampire, did you watch that latest show, the latest interview with the vampire? I think it was on what, FX or one of those state or AMC maybe, the like real new
Um,
one.
I've heard of it, but I stopped watching a lot of TV ever since I started quantum tunneling. But I have seen the previews. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, well, one of the things about the vampires in that particular movie, or that show I should say, is they can hear people's like inner voices. They can hear their thoughts. They can hear everybody
Mhm.
except for their progeny. So the children they created, they can hear everybody except them, if that makes
Yeah, I've
sense.
heard. Yeah, and I've heard something similar, like Lucifer, like the Luciferians, they all can actually hear each other, or like even the angels, they all like had that connection. And that's how they like get so much done is because they're like connected and they're automatically like inputting and outputting, communication simultaneously. I hope that humans get there, like all of them, because there would be so much less war and more production and more like innovation if we were all like, at least on some level, able to communicate without speaking, like
Yeah,
Dracula.
there definitely seems to be some kind of connection there because um, in order for them to keep us opposed to each other and keep us all just trying to make money and opposing each other and competing and having wars with each other, that really wouldn't work if we were in communication, because we'd feel each other's pain. We wouldn't be able to go into another
Hmm.
country and like take over, because that'd make us feel terrible. Raven
Right.
Kiefer, shout out to Raven. He says from the chat, it said the original generation of giants communicated through hive mind. Hmm,
The
interesting.
Nephilim. Yes.
And that would make perfect sense if the elite today were descended from these Nephilim, and they're still continuing the same practices such as the hive mind, the psychic communication. I've heard people say that Freemasons have something similar like that going on. And I've
Oh,
had, what was that?
when they like a lot of Freemasons do this, just like to draw in and start programming people, usually in marketing situations.
That's true as well. There's definitely a link
Yeah.
between this hidden world and the world of marketing and advertising and what's it called? Madison Avenue is the
Yeah.
phrase they would, yeah, like that show Mad Men. That's kind of based
Yeah.
on Madison Avenue, the name of the guys that work there, and they were kind of taking these secrets from the occult world and the world of secret societies that these rich people belonged in, and kind of applying them to the world of marketing. And you still see a lot of that stuff today, like symbols and logos are basically sigils, like the
Right.
McDonald's golden arches.
Hmm.
Let me ask
Yes.
you, have did you ever watch the show True Blood?
Yes, I love that show on Showtime, right?
Yeah, Placebo Rock. He made a comment in the chat that reminds me of that show. He says it will make you crazy to hear everyone's voices in your head.
It will. It does. It makes people crazy because they think they're hallucinating. So that's all starts with educating children at a young age, like, and making sure that they understand like humans do have the ability to communicate telepathically. Some people hear only, some people can actually send messages telepathically. It just depends on what level and how much is activated in that pineal gland and like chemically, and everything has to be like balanced on a certain frequency so that people that are on that frequency can communicate, optimized as optimized as possible.
It makes
Yeah.
me wonder too if certain people that do have, they're purported to have schizophrenia and issues
Mhm.
like that, but maybe like they're thinking people are thinking bad things about them. Well, maybe it's real sometimes. Like if I go into a crowded room and I'm having some sort of like insecurity and I'm imagining people are thinking negative things about me, maybe I am just imagining, maybe it is insecurity, or maybe it's actually reflecting something that's really going on out there. I mean, that's kind of a depressing thought, but who really knows, right?
Yeah, the psychological psychiatry, those industries, they definitely need to update everything with quantum biology, because that just taps in and explores quantum plasma, quantum biology, the different. I mean, if you evolve on a quantum level, then you have access to the multiverse, you have access to quantum communications, you can even like communicate seamlessly without any chips in your head with technology, or at least intuitively know when things, understand things before you go and look it up on your phone. I mean, we're all kind of a cyborg with our phones because everybody has a cell phone now. But yeah, it they need to update their books to say the least, so people aren't misdiagnosed who have telepathy. That happens so too often, and it's really sad.
Okay, interesting. So, what I would like to do next is I'd like to hear a little bit about this quantum tunneling that you're involved in. Would you mind explaining that
Mhm.
to us?
Yes. Okay. So quantum tunneling is when a wave function, it's a wave function that involves particles, usually electrons and atoms, or small, tiny, microscopic particles. They penetrate through a potential barrier. In my case, it's videos that are recorded, and they record space-time. So space-time recorded is actually a tiny little like bits of information, and it's energy, and it's saved just like on your phone. You save a video, and that is like energy saved to your phone. So quantum tunneling is where a message or a physical particle, electric usually in nature, the energy gets through, passes through the barrier, which is the video in my case, potential barrier, but it can be any barrier, and a message can be sent through that, like a package, just like you would send a text message. That is quantum tunneling in a nutshell. For my experience, I'm not a quantum physicist, so I don't have like all the answers, but because I'm experiencing it and I offer it as a service, quantum messaging services, that's why I started studying this, like, and trying to understand exactly what my body's doing, how the energy is working, and hopefully help a lot of people out by leaping information. I mean, that's the ideal. The only reason I could see anyone having the ability to quantum tunnel is to send messages from the future into the present by just scheduling that message.
That's interesting. That really begs a lot of questions. Like, I've heard people say that there's something similar going on in the Bible where things
Really?
happening today might actually be affecting the past, or that somehow what's happening now is sort of connected and intertwined with the events that are happening in those old stories.
That would be crazy, because that is like, that would take some serious skill to quantum tunnel to the past through just like Sanskrit, or well, you're talking about the Bible, so it'd be like through Hebrew or like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and like have the actual I don't know if you've ever noticed, but like the real authentic Dead Sea Scrolls, when you read it or you just look at it, the words kind of cascade across the paper like a cloud. Like when clouds are in the air, it does that, and that's the energy. So, I mean, anything's possible. Einstein said the imagination is the most powerful thing that a human can, have and utilize. And I mean, not verbatim, but it's pretty much the gist of it. And yeah, I mean, anything's possible. That would be
Especially,
crazy.
definitely, especially if it's a case where, because you hear that term, the dark ages. Like, what
Yeah.
if back then, like in the times of, like, before the flood or just after, like, there was more magic back then, there was more high technology, people had their third eyes open, or they had some sort of initiation going on where they had that extra sensory perception. And then you have the dark ages where everything's just kind of like everybody loses that. They lose touch, and those abilities and that phenomena goes away until nowadays. So because we were activated back then and some of us are activated now, there might be some kind of connection. Like, we might be able to actually communicate with the past. Kind of freaky when you think about it.
That's awesome. That well, that takes me like to the multiverse, like the parallel universes, and how time isn't. It doesn't really exist. Like the earth spins and we have time to measure things, but really time doesn't exist in the multiverse. It's just all happening all at once. We can be in more than one body at one time, our spirit, so to speak, or the energy that we hold. And it's just like the theory of God, the God spark, that all humans have this spark inside of them, and that God spark is what connects us and evolves us, just like ascending. So yeah, if we can tap into that, then anyone, which is scary. I hope the right people are like trying to change things for the better, and trying to change things in the past, because if that gets in the wrong hands, it could go really bad for everybody.
Definitely. And we are joined now by Raven Kiefer. Hey, Raven, how you doing?
Hi, Raven.
Mahana, favor everybody. Hi, Nina.
Hi.
Houston, what a place.
You've been here?
Oh yeah, you know I love those multi-tiered roadways. It's better in Houston than it is at Dallas Fort Worth, though. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the traffic is a little bit better, unless you're, I don't know,
Anyway,
rush hour 3.
I did not want to interrupt the subject. I just wanted to say hello to everybody. Mahana, favor everybody. Nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing absent from your lives that are needed. And Nina is very unique. Have you guys even started talking about Thereal yet?
The ethereal? Not quite
Thereal
yet.
Chronicles?
How do you pronounce that? I always called it Thereal.
You're pretty accurate. It's kind of a play off of ethereal, so you're pronouncing it correctly.
Sweet.
You could pronounce it however you want.
She hasn't even mentioned. I've been listening, y'all. She hasn't even mentioned her poetry yet.
No.
Yes, Nina actually is a writer. She does have some work that she publishes online.
Mm-hmm.
She writes about
Yeah.
a variety of topics, including the Anunnaki.
Yeah, the Anunnaki are wild. When I studied the cuneiform, I swear, like Zachariah Hitchens, is that his name? He said that
Sitchin.
it's like the Genesis Sitchins. Yeah, so he said that it was a Genesis story, but I think that it's actually a song. Have you ever like seen bars like across and they get quiet, they start quiet and they get louder? I think that's how the Anunnaki communicated, was through music.
Makes
But
sense.
that's my theory. Yeah.
Well, if you look at the old construction, there are cymatic symbols on all the old construction. Even the cathedrals have cymatics in their windows and carved into the reliefs that the masons built. Bees, the honeycomb is a cymatic symbol for sound. And we know that sound, the frequency of the sound can heal or harm depending on how you use it.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear somebody walking down the street whistling a happy tune and you're like, oh, that's great. But if they're humming something like really low and really somber, then you feel that too. So it makes sense that communication that way would, there's that emotional thing you guys were talking about earlier, communicating through emotion rather than words.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have that one guest that was talking about the device built with dead bee husks, where you put like hundreds of them inside of this box thing, and somehow it allows you to fly around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never heard of that.
The bee UFO. I believe that was
Neither
Chaz of the Dead. It was like a real experiment, but there's something about the way that bees flap their wings and they create that buzzing sound. It has a lot to do with the way that they fly. Like we don't totally understand how that works yet. They're creating a field around themselves.
Well, and they also say that frequency that the bees generate is a calming, soothing frequency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're attracted to the ultraviolet light, and they, go and get pollen, but that has ultraviolet. I mean, they choose what has ultraviolet light, essentially, so that they can keep creating their hives and keep, pollinating the planet, basically.
Yeah, well, they're working on creating a fungus to get rid of the fungus on the bees. That should go well, right?
Yeah,
I
and
feel bad for
that's
them.
exactly, that's such a good point, because like
Uh,
our ecosystem is so sensitive, and bees seem to be one of the first things they look at when they look at an area being destroyed. They start saying, where are the bees, what's happening to the bees. Everybody wants to know what's happening with the bees because they're so closely tied to our, to the health of our ecosystem.
yeah, without bees, I can't imagine trying to pollinate everything that you need to grow. And there's different kinds. You've got several varieties of bees in one area, and each one likes a different kind of flower, of nectar. So if you lose one population, let's say the ones that go after the tomato flowers, if you lose that population, then anything that has a similar flower is not going to get pollinated, so you're not going to get fruit or vegetables. Um, so people don't understand that it takes all of the types of bees. I actually built a habitat for them, and hopefully we've got some extra queens this year, because our population got decimated too when what was that, 2017, 2018, when they tried to cure the fungus that was on the bees the last time.
Uh it also, there's another way to tie this together too, because you have the concept of the beehive, right? The hive mind.
Absolutely.
And we've all seen the alien movies, right? With the queen alien, and the queen alien has this sort of psychic control over the little drone aliens. And then you have the idea of, going back to vampires again, of the master vampire having this kind of like psychic overlordship over the vampires he creates, his underlings. There seems to be a lot of crossover there, as far as psychic abilities go, and the ancient world and the elite, and going back to the times of the Anunnaki, when their offspring would become the kings, and then they in turn would have, kind of like this overlordship over the people, by existing at the highest point on the ziggurat.
Yeah,
I
there's
just went.
definitely like a hierarchy. It's always humans tend to, or not humans, but everything in nature tends to copy itself in some shape or form, and makes it something. It's the same pattern. It's just like sacred geometry. So it's the same pattern in different cultures and different species on Earth, and that's the part of the body of God, or whatever the supreme being is.
Well, yeah, but the other thing is by convincing people that these things do not exist, and you cannot do it. What happens is people adopt those beliefs and they quit doing it. It's like a child who has all those imaginary friends that actually play with them, and then when they get older, oh, those don't exist, yeah, blah blah blah, and eventually you give up on the spirits and the nature of things around you. It's the same with the telekinetic or psychic abilities. How many times have you picked up the phone and called somebody and they say, "Oh, I was just thinking about you"?
Yeah,
Happens a
there you
lot.
go. There you go. I've
You
had
know
that
that
so many times. I've even had
that is
that, Nina and I are actually, we've been friends for a while. There's been times when we've had that actually happen between us. Like the other person was about to text the other person or something like that. It's happened probably like 2 or 3 times.
Or like a flock of birds would go by, pigeons, and then you would send me a picture like, "Hey, look at these pigeons that I'm raising." Or I can't remember if you were raising pigeons or at one point, but it was really cool. Like it's like they're just flying around like randomly out of the normal area, because I mean they weren't in my neighborhood. They just happened to fly by.
that's fun. That's funky.
That's a good point. Like, how the heck are they doing it? How is it that you can take a pigeon and drive like 3 states over and it instantly flies home?
It's like quantum coherence. It just like kind of like teleports from one place and just like appears in another. But that's just kind of the way, I believe that's kind of just the way that the supreme like collective consciousness of all humans. I mean, that's essentially what heaven is: everybody connected, everything harmonious, and things synchronizing in a way that everything vibrates on a certain frequency. So even everything matter vibrates. So, I mean, everything that we see, even light, vibrates at a certain frequency. So we're all made up of all the stuff that's on Earth and off Earth and stars. So it all just, it makes sense to like have synchronicity like that and like be connected with people that you become friends with and end up, like, evolving as a relationship or just like as a complete collective of individuals.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it's like we live in a radio dial, and we try to stay on our own channel. Let's just say, just pick one, 99.9. How's that for a number, y'all? So I try to live at 99.9 all the time, but I've got a friend who is 99.91. That'd be Daniel. Speaking of how this works, speaking of how this works, today I was on house duties, and I thought, man, I got to check my Twitter. And the minute I did, he had posted, "Hey, can you join us tonight?" And it had gone up just a few minutes before.
There you go. Exactly.
That's how it works. So what happens is we tend to hang with people that are closer to our frequency, so it's easy for us to dial up or dial down in order to communicate that way. Now, what happens when we meditate or we go into whatever, however we do it, some people unfortunately are stuck using drugs to do it. But if you meditate, you're changing your frequency in one way or the other, or your energy. So what you're doing is you're not only changing the dial on the radio, but you're also changing the amplitude. And that's how we astral project. That's how we communicate with people across thousands of miles. And interesting, I want to get back on that subject because I didn't mean to interrupt you all, but the multiverse, being able to jump into those other partitions, that's part of it.
It's like the idea that when someone dies, they don't actually die. They just kind of like go into the other version of themselves in a different part of another dimension, on a parallel universe somewhere else that's literally like right on top of the universe that you're already in. Yeah.
Well, that's, I told Daniel, I sent him a message before I could get on here. I said, it'll be great to talk to Nina because I wanted to ask you because of the way you write. Have you ever experienced a whole lifetime while you were asleep or while you were meditating and then came back and you're like, whoa, wait a second. I just grew old somewhere.
Yeah, or I felt like I died like randomly and just like popped into my body like several times. But those are like bad experiences. But yeah, I've like lived. I felt like I've actually lived like a completely different life, and like I'm both people because one of those people isn't around anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. So it's just me. But that's kind of like Jainism. I think that's what it's how it's pronounced in Hinduism, where you have like multiple versions of you, and they're all existing simultaneously. And you can tap into either one of those bodies, like astral projecting, or like in a dream state where you can actually astral project in your sleep, leave your body, and live in that life as well, like at the same time. You're just pretty much sleeping.
Well, they made a movie. Jet Li, I think, was the one that was in it. Y'all that are in the chat can correct me, but I think it was Jet Li. He made a movie called The One, where he had gotten psychopathic, or however you want to describe him, and he had actually started jumping from one to the other, killing his other parts.
That's a badass movie.
He tries to it's a good movie. Yeah, he tries to get down to one, right? They all try to kill each other. Yeah, I remember that movie.
Every time he kills one of his copies, he like absorbs them and gets stronger.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, you could see that there had been a psychopathy among his copies because they were doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, it's kind of like, what's it called, Highlander in a way.
Yeah,
where
that's another version.
Yeah, and even in Highlander, they call the when you chop another immortal's head off and the lightning starts and you absorb their memories and their power and everything, that's called the quickening. And in doing my research, Raven, I know you're a researcher too, but I've actually learned that this whole quickening thing is actually a real thing that goes back to ancient times.
It is.
Yeah, the occult, I read something somewhere that the occult, like the evil part of the occult, not just like regular all occult, but the ones that practice Satanism and stuff, they kill people and they try to absorb that energy when that person dies. Really messed up.
Well, and it's unfortunate because a lot of those organizations are not seeking other pieces of themselves. They're just trying to take whatever they can from whoever they can.
Right. Right. And that's completely different. I don't even believe that I know that they believe that that's possible, but I don't believe in that anyone can absorb someone else's energy if that person isn't in sync and on a frequency level as that person already.
Exactly. Well, and that's the reason for. I hate to even get off on this subject because it's really dark, but that's the reason for the ritualistic abuse and the ritualistic nature of a lot of what they do is because they're trying to lower the frequency of their victim down to their frequency, which is god awful dark, so that they can absorb that energy. Um, it's the only way that process can work.
Mm. It's like those people that have like vampire energy and they have to like be around other people just to like feel energized. So they're like never content by themselves and they're like constantly like going out of their way to like bring people down to that level just to like, yeah, try to, I don't know, fill the void that is them.
Yeah, it's
what's
awful.
interesting in most of the vampire mythologies, the vampires that are very old, they're kind of like tired of life. They're very bitter. They're tired of always doing the same things. It's like what they're doing is not natural. They're not going through the natural life process of evolving. They're just choosing to stay in place for purposes of power, so they could have these special abilities, or they could have this dominance over society, or they can collect their riches or their knowledge and never have to die, reincarnate, or start over again.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at millionaire. Well, you look at these billionaires and multi-billionaires that have grown very, very old that look like Emperor Palpatine. They have gone through. They have done that their whole lives, and there is the esoteric writings that say that they have figured out a way to not actually die. They find a replacement physical avatar, and they have figured out a way to ritualistically transfer themselves into another avatar at the highest levels. That is not the guys in the middle, but you look at how dark they become over time, and I mean they look like Emperor Palpatine. I think that was a very good characterization of what evil really does to you.
Yeah, it rips your body apart because it's on that. It's quantum decay or some kind of decay, so it's just like tearing you apart. But because the power is in your body, it's like a parasite almost. It stays in your body, so it keeps you alive. But that's the only thing that's keeping that person alive is that power.
And look how they fight to stay alive. They're so afraid of dying.
I know.
Yeah, and then you have the whole idea of not only are they delaying death, but they also have some kind of way of delaying karma. Like, I believe in karma. I believe karma is 100% real. But these elites, you're always hearing them say, or you're hearing people say, truthers say, that they have a method of showing us what they are about to do. That way, if we see it and we don't say anything or try to stop it, then they think that they don't have to get the karma. The karma will not come back to them for the horrible things they're doing to the rest of us. Like, there's no way that's true. I think that the karma is still coming at them. It's just probably delayed 1,000 years or something like that.
Well, and then you have people like Daniel and I and all these other truthers, quote unquote. I hate that term, but it's gotten so derogatory. But you have us out there with our podcast pointing out the evils that they do. That immediately puts the karma on them. That's the reason why they try to shut us up. And I hate to say that, but
that's a good point.
Yeah, the more attention, the more people that paying attention to something, that the easier, faster the karma kicks in. Definitely.
Well, let's go back to the light stuff. I wanted to get your take because I've read some of your poetry and I was just tickled. I have to say, I was tickled that she was going to be on here tonight and I got invited. What about your interdimensional, interuniversal travels that you get your writings from? I really want to hear some of your experiences.
They're actually, okay, so before I started writing Thereal Chronicles, I was researching all religions. I was researching all belief systems in different cultures all around the world, and I was practicing them, like as an adult. Like I was 33, like practicing, drawing runes, seeing that it was going to work, and just all kinds of, I would call them science experiments. But it basically, the poetry is like a manifestation of like my experiences with whatever did happen or occur while I was trying to experiment with different, like calling on different deities, or just believing that they exist alone is powerful, because you can connect. If they did exist, that is how you would connect with them, is just by believing in them. So
I
my
agree with
poetry
that.
comes from, like personal experiences. A lot of my poems are like sad, or they're like, I don't know, about love, or about my kids. Just so I just wanted just to express like whatever I was feeling at that moment. But they do come from Thereal Chronicles, like my experiences with studying all of those religions and being called crazy because I'm outside meditating, like doing some kind of Tai Chi or something. I'm trying to, be an Asian or something. I just want to know how they feel, like be in their body at that moment and like experience what everyone feels at some spiritual level.
Well, the first step is to start seeking. That's the initiate's first step, is to step outside of the norms and accepted, and that makes you an initiate by the oldest terms. Is when you step out of the norm and accepted. So, curious, what religions did you start with?
Well, I was raised on, I was baptized Mormon. So my mom, she had a phase where she was Mormon. And so did we, as me and my sisters. And so I started there, and I just, I was curious about witchcraft just because I liked horror movies and the idea of having powers. So I just believed, oh, maybe I have powers. But that's what I started with, was Wicca and Christianity. And they're kind of the same. I mean, Jesus is like a wizard. If you read that and then you read like stuff about wizards, it's exactly the same to me. It's just like they have a different way of living, which is the religion part, or religious part. But yeah, I started there, and then I just, I'm a fourth Norwegian, so I studied like the Norse mythology, and I knew about Greek and Roman mythology, because of high school, like everybody has to study that. And all the movies, like they took over basically, like all the movies are Greek this and Roman that. But I mean, I love those movies, so I just, I guess I tried to contact every single one, like any deity that wants to be friends with me, like, or just exist and show me their powers. Like I was like, come on, come out, come out and play. And that's pretty much.
I feel like I learned a lot about the gods from the Thor comics and movies. Like that sounds kind of lame, but actually you can learn a lot from that stuff. I mean, it's not exactly accurate, but it's accurate enough that you're going to learn a lot of the characters and the names and who's who and what's what and how things kind of operate.
Yep. Well, they could have just been humans with powers, and like they evolved and then they died because they weren't necessarily immortal. They died on some level. And I think I believe every single human has some power at some level. We're programmed as children not to believe things like that. So that's why
it's only the mutants that have the power. It's only the children of the chosen that have the power, and that's part of the lie that they have to sell. Because if you wake up and realize that you have power, they have none.
Yeah, or they see themselves as inferior because they don't feel special anymore, and that's unfortunate, because everybody has a role to play on Earth, and the more of us that are evolved, the better Earth will be. I mean, this is our home. We have to protect it. So the smarter we get, the better we are at protecting and even evolving the planet. Like the planet's evolving as well. It's just we're kind of ruining that. Like not us, but just like people, like there are too many humans on Earth that are just careless. They just kind of roam around like zombies, and I don't know. They don't think about what they do and how it affects the planet and how that affects themselves, even as a whole, like, and collectively how they're affecting other people.
There's also the school of thought where there might be certain lineages or bloodlines that are stronger in these abilities. I'm kind of referencing the witch hunts that happen in America, the Salem witch trials and all of that. I've heard people tell me, researchers tell me that was all about eliminating bloodlines, specific women who are strong in the dragon energy or the dragon blood or something of that nature, and they're able to. They call them fire starters. Like there's certain women or even men probably with red hair that could like stare at something and make it light on fire. And they even made a movie about that. I think it was in the 80s, and it was actually based on like the real experiments that they were doing with telekinesis in the laboratories and whatnot. All that stuff gets kind of covered up nowadays, but our government has invested some real serious money in studying this phenomena. There's no doubt about that.
Oh yeah. Well, and the other side of that too is if you look at the tribal people that they went after, whether it was in Africa or the United States or in Asia, people say tribes in Asia, but yes, if you look at who they went after first, they went after the medicine people and the shaman.
Yeah,
there's something. Yeah,
exactly.
Go ahead.
I mean, they crucified Jesus and the powers that be just because he was going against what they had at the time as well. That it's a repeating event that happens when the powers that be notice that someone that's not from their little section of people are evolving faster than they are.
Oh yeah. Well, did you have any? I don't know how your memories play out. I've read some of her stuff, y'all. You really should check out her pages. But personal experiences with individual deities. Can you relate any of them?
Well, I got 23andMe, so I actually literally believe in now that I've did my science experiments with the religious parts. I've definitely related to Norse, probably the Norse gods, Thor, Odin, the Vanir. Those are the witches and wizards, but they're called gods and goddesses of fertility in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a fourth of me is definitely that, and then I'm part Inca, so I studied the shamanism and the Inca god of the sun god and how they worship the cycles, the alchemy aspects, and I believe in that god. I believe in basically everything that I'm related to. Which is almost everything on the planet. So I just, I've communicated definitely. I feel like I feel so lucky because I've actually experienced out of body experiences where things are just it's so in sync where I feel like I'm not in reality. And some people would call that like a bipolar manic episode or psychotic episode, but it's not. It's like a spiritual awakening kind of experience. So it's unfortunate that so many spiritual awakenings end up being talked about as like a psychotic episode, or the people who use drugs to try to activate those kind of experiences, when you can just have them naturally just by talking more to your higher self. And that's what the God spark is. It's just activating that spark inside your body and communicating with any deity who's on that level. If you can, I mean, you won't know unless you try.
Well, I got Daniel. Are you ready for this? You would not believe the hate mail I got for quoting that book called No More Gods.
You got hate mail?
Oh yeah, man! I got
sorry.
some email. Well, no, I mean, a lot of people aren't even aware of that book. But now here's the thing, y'all. I never said that they didn't exist. I just said that they weren't gods, and I didn't say that you couldn't connect to them because they seem to be long-lived and multiple-lived. I just said that they're no different than we are. And if they're not going to help, they need to just bat off. Now, I wanted to ask Nina, did your interaction with these different entities provide you spiritual guidance and help? That's the catch.
Well, I started quantum tunneling, or I developed telepathy about 4 years ago, And I think it was definitely like an Anunnaki or something, because I did try to reach out to them too. It was like, hey, call me, maybe. But yeah, I really think that some higher power just was like, boop, and pressed a button. And now, I mean, I'm lucky that I didn't go crazy, because the first 2 years, I was just like, is there technology in my head? Like, am I connecting? Am I possessing people? Like, is this happening? Like, because I'm not doing it on purpose, but I just, I guess once you get to a quantum level, like biologically, yeah, things are weird. Things are just very weird. Like hearing people's thoughts in the grocery store that are complete strangers, just like random. But because it's me, those thoughts project like out in the intercom, like with the music and stuff. And so I don't know, like there's a give and take with telepathy, and I believe that's probably what I was gifted with, after communicating with all of these random deities that I just thought were cool.
Nice, nice. Well, a lot of problems that people have, and what really causes the psychological break, is that they make these connections and they learn these techniques, but they don't learn the backside of it, which is you have to keep your energy bubble up all the time. If you don't, you end up with this strange feedback all the time. You can't shut it off. It's like
Yep.
starting a machine and not knowing where the off switch is at.
Well, that's the thing. That's the catch with my gift, and sometimes I call it a curse, because I can't turn that off. Like, I think once you turn on telepathy, that it does not turn off. You're stuck. Like, I'm stuck with telepathy, and I'm grateful for it. But at the same time, I just want to turn it off so I can get some sleep. Like, I don't want to hear the neighbors and what they're like thinking about. I don't want to hear like someone remotely thinking about me in a negative way, like my ex or something. Like, I don't want to hear that while I'm trying to get some shut eye. So like I
There was
said,
a psychic, and some call him the most powerful psychic that's ever recorded to have existed. His name is Ingo Swann. He was part of the remote viewing program, and he actually wrote a few different books. And one of the tricks that he would use in order to tune out all the thoughts around him, he would picture a helmet on his head. And some of his colleagues, people that were also part of the remote viewing, they would start using the same technique where they would picture a helmet on them, and that would actually block a lot of the unwanted thoughts that were entering into their mindscape, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Well, that's almost reverse of what was his name, Dr. Xavier in the X-Men. He had to have a helmet in order to make a greater connection, but it gave him control over the connections that he was making.
Cerebro.
For me, yeah, Cerebro was another one. But for me, I'm always in a state of meditation. I have learned over the years that if I do not maintain this state, then I leave myself open to not just other people trying to communicate, but all the other things around me that I really don't want to communicate with, and I've said it in my podcast. I love to do podcasts late at night here because everybody else shuts down and I actually get some quiet.
Yeah, there's something about nighttime and the moon and all of that. I've always been kind of a night owl myself, not by choice, but just I find myself awake at those hours when it's peaceful and the moon's out and I could just kind of have the world to myself, so to speak.
Well, it is the only time you can see the stars and like actually attempt a connection with that energy. Maybe those are the gods, just like randomly scattered all around the sky, and they're timeless and they're motionless, because to a human, like, we can't fathom that they're moving, but they are moving constantly. And the moon, that makes sense, because the moon affects like all the vibrations and the waves of the planet, so it makes perfect sense if you're like really trying to higher your consciousness.
I'm sitting outside underneath whatever the full moon we have today. It's amazing. But I got to tell you, when I was a kid, I was making this connection to Thor. I must have been I'm thinking I was 11 or 12. But I was trying to make this connection to Thor because the new Thor comics had come out. And I thought, man, this is a really cool, So I found it at a flea market somewhere. They had one of those little hammers, and I thought, man, this is really. So I started carrying it with me because I wanted to connect to Thor. Well, the next summer we had a storm come in, and I was standing underneath a tree, and I got hit by a lightning bolt. And you could see where my feet were outlined on the ground and had burnt to grass, and it stayed that way for a couple of years.
Oh, dang.
When I got older, I started doing what she was talking about doing, going through all these pantheons and trying to connect to the historical and the cultural, as well as these deities that they were outlining. And when I got back to the Norse again, which I had gone through others, when I got back to the Norse again, I got hit by lightning not once but twice.
Whoa, are you okay?
Well,
That's bad.
The one time it hit. Yeah, well, the one time it hit a tree, I had to stand outside and I was trying to secure it from a storm, and I was standing in water barefoot and it hit the tree, and literally the person that was standing at the window watching saw the whole tent that I was in light up with the plasma from the lightning bolt, and I felt it. I felt my hair go up. And for me, though, it's always been a charging thing. For me, I can't explain that. I love electricity.
Yeah.
But it's really funny because I was.
Exactly.
See, when there's a thunderstorm, I will come outside and sit. I don't care how close they're striking around the mountains around me. I've always been drawn to the lightning.
Yeah, well, if you watch birds, they get excited when it starts to thunderstorm. They're like, if you watch them, they fly in the clouds. So they're fearless. And if the birds are fearless of the lightning, then why not us?
Well, have you ever? I got to ask. Have you ever reached out to the luminaires?
Luminaires.
There's an older generation that are called the luminaires. One of them is Eosophos, which was mistakenly called Lucifer or Lucient or the Morning Light. But I actually went beyond the pantheons and the modern stuff, and I started trying to reach out to the luminaires, and that's where I found the greatest connection. Eosophos is an amazing being, and I people are like, what? I did not invoke anything. That's the other thing I was going to ask you about, invocation versus evocation.
Like, what's the difference?
Well, no, I mean, most people know the difference, but have you ever made that mistake?
Oh, well, I don't try to call deities or like beings like, well, I think Lucifer is a deity also, but like calling on any of those deities, you want their attention, but you don't necessarily want to like call on the wrong deity and then accidentally have like a really bad experience. Because
there you go.
That not all deities are nice to humans. They are not. I know they are not nice. Some of them are like, leave us alone. Or like, why are you speaking English to us? What do you want?
Well, I always say, do you really want to ring a dinner bell for a dragon that likes to eat humans?
Yeah, and actually that begs a question that I actually had in my notes. I wanted to ask Nina. Overall thoughts on Lucifer. Like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Does he really even exist? What's his purpose? And can you give us any feedback or ideas on that?
I actually feel after studying the characters instead of the programming side of the Bible and the Dead Sea Scrolls, the story. I mean, it's an angry angel that got in a fight with his dad, pretty much, and it was like, if a third of your whole like people, they leave you because they don't, they want to mingle with people and teach humans different skill sets and like teach humans about alchemy and all that. I think that Lucifer was just, if Lucifer's gone, I think the deity part is still alive in a lot of people. I mean, it's the god of music or just sound. So that deity leaving, it's a pretty powerful move, and I don't think that he wants to necessarily hang out with humans, but definitely wants to evolve them, because I mean, what would you do if you wanted to live on Earth, rule over Earth or whatever, and you take your fallen angels with you, all of your people, creating Nephilim, having babies with humans? I don't think that that's bad. I think that that was probably a good thing. It was not what God wanted. God's a control freak in that, that area. So, I mean, if arrogance or rage or whatever, like I get that. I get wrath. Like I understand that emotion. So I don't see anything wrong with Lucifer. I think it's pretty badass. Like just like Jesus, like they're rebels. They are like, no, I'm doing this way. They did it a different way, but I mean, they're pretty much brothers. So, yeah.
I look at Lucifer this way. He saw a bunch of people that were being kept prison and enslaved in a garden and decided to turn them loose.
It's like, run free.
I'm very curious about the Anunnaki connection there. I've researched so many different versions of like the Enki Enlil story, and there really are many different versions. I'm not going to say I believe this or I believe that, but one of them says that actually Enki was putting Anunnaki DNA back into humans, and his brother Enlil wanted to keep humans kind of pure. So the war that's still going on is actually from the humans that have some of this Anunnaki DNA, and then Enlil's side, who's trying to keep everybody pure. And again, I'm not saying that's how it is, but that's the story. I'm noticing some similarity to what Raven and Nina are talking about, and this stuff I've been recently looking at.
Yeah. Well, there's you go ahead.
No, dear. What I was going to say is if you look, these bloodlines have always been trying to subdue those who aren't part of the bloodlines. But the other thing that you have is there seems to be, whether you're talking about Enki and Enlil, or Thor and Loki, or Lucifer and whatever came before, there seems to be this splitting of the ways between brothers. One was trying to help, and the other one wanted to keep the original group enslaved. I mean, that's the common story.
And the Sanskrit stuff too, the Vedic literature. There's a war between brothers in there too. You could even say
the same thing.
Well, check this out. You guys are familiar with the game Magic: The Gathering, right? Like, yeah. It's been around since the 90s. I used to play when I was a kid. I don't play it anymore. Those cards are expensive, but I noticed I was at Target the other day, and the latest expansion is called The Brothers War.
Wow.
Yeah. There you go. Like, you literally see this phenomena in just about every like mythology or culture.
Yeah, it's like the story keeps repeating, almost like there's this deity that wants closure, or like wants recognition, or wants the truth to be out there, because it's just like a common theme across all cultures, is this story about a deity falling in love with the human, or mating with humans, and then evolving the species and having, hybrids. And I mean, the whole point, I'm sure, is because they want to eventually terraform other planets and, travel, just like humans are trying to do right now. We're trying to go to Mars.
Yeah. Well, and the other interesting thing too is I pointed out in my Occulted History podcast, there's a lot of places in the world that they say that the eagle came and overthrew the serpent and threw the serpent out. Well, that goes back to your biblical text, right? But if you go back and you actually follow those stories, the eagle was one side of a family and the serpent was the other, and the eagle was sick of the serpent mistreating the population, and the eagle threw the serpent out. So these stories go all the way back through history, but they're interconnected.
Yeah, that definitely begs a lot of questions.
Yeah. Well, there's a snake that protects the realms, the 9 realms of the Norse mythology. It's the snake that bites its own tail, so it's infinite, but it's the guardian. I can't pronounce the actual name and the Norse name of that snake, but it's
Is it
just another
Jormunder, something like that?
yeah, something like something like that.
Well, the interesting thing about that snake that bites its own tail and its name, if you actually look into that, it would fit the description of the ice wall.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's an interesting thought, and also it could represent, the snake biting its tail is the Ouroboros, which a lot of the elite wear jewelry or have tattoos of this Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail. It's a common theme you see repeated in many cultures, and it actually represents reincarnation as well, and being stuck in this earthly plane and having to reincarnate over and over. It has a lot to do with these would-be vampires or whatever you call them, because that's what they want. They want us to just keep reincarnating, and they want themselves to just be immortal on this plane. They do not want to get to the next level. They don't want to enter the kingdom of God. Or, I mean, this is my personal belief, but to me, there's definitely something like that going on. It's like real life Star Wars, basically.
Well, if you could live here and be evil and do whatever you wanted to and avoid your karma, why wouldn't you want to stay in the playground where you can be the meanest, nastiest, most horrible thing on the playground?
Yeah, exactly. And going back to Star Wars, one thing I've always loved about Star Wars was like the Force is basically like psychic ability, right? Except it's not only telepathy, but it's telekinesis. It's seeing the future. I mean, they sort of knew like Luke would grow up and do this or that. Basically, everything you see in those movies, and I'm not talking about the million prequels or the Mandalorian. I haven't even seen the Mandalorian. I just know that they constantly say this is the way, which is cool, but I don't know anything about it. But in the original Star Wars, the Force was basically like the good side was the good mystics and mystery people back in the old days, like the people that build the pyramids and stuff like that. And the dark side were the Sith. They took over from the good priests and people that were in control of society back then. It was just like the way they took over the Republic, right? In the Star Wars, well, actually, that would be the prequels, but the way that they took over the Republic, I believe that must have really happened in the past. And now all we have are the bad guys, and that's why the bad guys have the psychic abilities and they have the powers, because the dark side is basically in control. They took over the Senate.
Right. And then they write the narrative, they write the story, like whoever wins the war is basically who writes what everyone's programmed to believe.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and you guys, one of the guys in the chat earlier brought up the fact that they have been trying to subdue the psychic abilities of people for centuries.
Yeah, and I've also heard, again, this is like, I don't know if this is true, but some alien abductions actually have to do with the pineal gland, in the same way that they try to put fluoride in our drinks and stuff in our food to make our pineal gland crystallize. Well, alien abductions might happen right when a person's about to wake up telepathically or telekinetically, or something's going on with their chakra system. Their kundalini is awakening. Kundalini means like your body's energy, your chi, the force flowing through your chakras. Just when it's about to wake up and you're about to achieve a psychic awakening, these aliens, or what we think of as aliens, come down and start putting all this crap in your head, sticking things up your nose, sticking things in your eye sockets, doing weird anal this or that to you in order to maybe drive your vibration down or mess with your parts that you need to perform psychic functions, if that kind of makes sense.
They really are anal retentive.
I've only experienced the good aliens that like don't do that, but I hate, like, that sucks. You've experienced the bad ones with the pros.
I haven't had that happen to me. Don't get confused.
Okay.
No. Yeah, that's my worst nightmare. When I saw a UFO, that's what I was worried that was going to happen. I was worried it was going to turn into some kind of like medical thing or something like that. I was like, no, I don't trust you. I've heard too much.
Well, haven't you noticed that the people who seem to be the most awake and the most unaffected are also the ones who have either had near-death experiences or severe head traumas?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting point for sure. And
Yeah,
going
well,
back to the, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say with programming, when the different brain waves, the binaural beats of the brain, in programming with marketing all the way to like the occult, they changed the brain waves or altered that frequency to input or to like to basically program whatever they want in someone's brain. And they usually use trauma to do that. At least in the occult, they do.
Yeah, basically one of the reasons I know that they do that is because when you traumatize somebody, like they'll use the term opening the gates, like certain things open the gates to your subconscious, like certain musical patterns, lights, words. Putting somebody in like a meditative state will allow things to enter into their subconscious easier, as well as like trauma. There's even a trick you can do, like if you have a bad habit, if you tell yourself to stop directly after you execute that bad habit, it will literally help you stop because that gateway into your subconscious is still open. It had to open up to allow you to do this repeated behavior, sucking your thumb, picking your nose, whatever you're doing that you don't want to do anymore. Like if you find yourself doing that habit and you immediately tell yourself, Daniel, stop, it'll actually be able to enter your subconscious before that gateway closes, if that kind of makes sense. There's a whole world of thought in regards to that. Yeah.
I've had a friend that was wanting to quit smoking, and I said, "Are you sure you want to quit?" And he says, "Yes." And I said, "Every time you put a cigarette out, you tell yourself, I am going to stop." And after 3 months, not a single cigarette. I'm proud of him.
Yeah, exactly. There's some truth there. Nina, I did want to, I know we're kind of getting along in our interview here, but I did have another question I wanted to ask you about Stargates. Any opinion on Stargates? Are they real? Were they real? Any thoughts on Stargates?
Stargates, like Stargate Atlantis. Yes, Stargates. I believe in the future, the more that we, it's like quantum computing, and quantum mechanics. So Stargates, if they existed in the past, then that means that something destroyed, all of the technology, and we're just starting over from there. But because we have the imagination to create, or at least Hollywood or whoever, Universal Studios created the Stargate TV show. You can. I think it's more humans do this without an actual gate, so it's more of like a spiritual gate for human beings. But like it's just like astral projection or remote, like just walking, like taking a walk, like outside of your body, and or experiencing sensory input from even someone else's body, like just walking in. A lot of telepaths that are advanced, they can actually do that, like see out of other people's eyes, share like images that they're doing or whatever they can see at any given time, and obviously speak to each other. So the Stargate, it would be cool if we start actually creating these gates so that we can just, the Inca kind of had something similar to like a Stargate, and they would teleport, or historically that's what they said. I don't know if it's true or not, but they would go into these stones and then they would actually teleport into somewhere else. So yeah, Stargates, I definitely believe are possible. Just getting to that technology, it'll take time and probably a quantum leap to get there.
Yeah, the thing about seeing through others' eyes, that strikes a chord with me, because that's something I've heard many times from people in the truth community that are experiencing some kind of like gang stalking or harassment. You might call it like hive mind harassment or demonic harassment. There's so many different labels they put on this stuff, but I've heard time and time again them say that something is looking through their eyes and talking to them. Like that's one of the ways that these, I don't know if they're Freemasons, I don't know if they're Nephilim slim or just elite freaks or whatever the hell they are, but somehow they're able to do just that. Like if they want to spy on you, they don't necessarily have to watch you through your iPhone. They could actually see through your eyes and see what you're doing. Maybe if you're not protected enough, I'm not sure exactly how that works. They obviously have access to this knowledge and we do not. But again, I just hear that pop up time and time again.
Yeah, I think it's called theta programming. The telepaths that do things like that to gang stalk people specifically, they're trained in some kind of theta programming where they induce a state in other people and try to program them, just like marketing. When you see, like, watch the news and they have all these these commercials and that they have all these symbols like representing their brands. It's all programming through the eye. So theta programming is through the mind and the eye. So they can get I read anyway that they can get pretty aggressive. I mean, just becoming a telepath feels like you're being gang stalked if you don't know that you're just telepathic.
Well, remember the dude from Game of Thrones? I think his name was it Bran or Braun or something like that, and he was able to do what's called warging, and this is actually a real thing from the history of shamanism and all that, where you can see through animals' eyes, and if you get really good at it, you can see through people's eyes. Game of Thrones is one of those things, kind of like Harry Potter or Star Wars. It's just full of this truth stuff that really existed in ancient times. It just became mythologized, or I'm not sure what word you'd use for that, but it became myth over time. But there's actually some kind of true origin and a reason why we have these tells and why we talk about certain abilities and things like that, because people really were doing it. Maybe even things like shapeshifting seems to be a major part of the ancient world, and just about every culture has its shapeshifters, and it ties right in hand with these other sort of shamanistic abilities, higher abilities that, again, these elite people seem to hoard, and they destroy cultures that know how to do this stuff. That's another good point, is they'll go into indigenous areas and they'll kill off all the people that have these abilities and know how to do this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting too that, shapeshifters. Who was one of the most famous shapeshifters out of mythology? Zeus. He changed shape to whatever he wanted to in order to seduce somebody. But on the Stargate thing, if they needed a mechanical Stargate to do what we can do naturally, who was more advanced?
Very true.
That is a good question. I know, like, the indigenous populations, they have all these abilities, like shape-shifting is a really popular one, and then the teleportation and psychic and shaman abilities. And yeah, Daniel's right about how they were pretty much put into extinction. I mean, that's why they're protected now, but I mean, that was, it all started with the Crusades, where they just decided to start hunting witches, and then they hunt, the Native Americans, and it's just anyone with power. They, I say they, but just like the people that are already in power, they don't want that to be taken from them.
I also wanted to, while I still got you here, Nina, I wanted to switch subjects a little bit, and I had a few more questions I definitely want to ask before we let you go. But I know you're a huge fan of Elon Musk. You follow his work very closely, and I wanted to ask your thoughts on Elon taking over Twitter.
What do I think about it? I think it's brilliant. I'm kind of a little disappointed, though, that he spent so much. He paid a little more than he should have for it. And, I mean, I'm not that I'm the one to say what he should spend his money on, but definitely other investments that could have went to. And then I'm kind of sad that to see him get so. It's a good thing that he's politically involved and he's doing a lot of Twitter threads and I don't follow it because I don't like the drama. But all these exposing politicians and stuff for the things that they have done through Twitter evidence. And I guess it's marketing. It's part of marketing, and it's supposed to be popular. But I don't know. I would like to see him. He still promotes like all of his companies and things of that nature. But I kind of miss like old Elon before Twitter was his, and where he's just like randomly freestyling some kind of random text like tweet. That Elon, like I guess probably got reeled in because of the whole like saying that he was going public with Tesla and going to like court for that. But yeah, I think it's a good thing that someone like him has a platform to. I mean, he's one of those people that are pretty independent, politically speaking, and yeah, he's like almost like a philanthropist in some ways. I guess with his actions, not necessarily with his funding like money, but he's yeah, I think it's a good thing that he is taking over Twitter, and I think he's doing a really good job with respect to that. Actually, side note, I actually applied for Twitter. I was like, I'll work for Elon Musk. Like, why not? Like, who wouldn't work for that guy? He's brilliant. He just keeps doing more and more and more.
Any thoughts on that, Raven?
You know, Elon's an interesting fellow. I have been reading him since he started, and I still can't read him. How's that for funny? I think him being on Twitter is just amazing. I find his random posts to be very acute when he does it. But I think part of his thing was he was frustrated because he was just as shut off at Twitter as anybody else, and he was using that to reach out to people for Tesla and his robotics and his space rocket program, and his satellite program too. Not to mention he's got solar panels. Honestly, I think he if he didn't do anything else, he made the absolute smartest business move that he could have made, because they had him shut down when he had quite a few followers. But time tells. I don't care what somebody says or sells. I want to see what they do over time.
Weren't you looking into that Starlink so you'd have better internet out there?
Yeah, and I'm frustrated. I'm in a zone where I'm like on a waiting list forever.
You should get T-Mobile because they partner with Starlink.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Where I'm at, I'm so far up in the mountains. I have to have a satellite.
Oh, okay.
So,
I also wanted to ask what your thoughts are on the recent global drama going on. We cover a lot of current events on this program. We are in something of a proxy war with Russia through Ukraine. Nita, what do you think about the conflict going on over in Eastern Europe? And what do you think about the possibility of China entering into the fray and there being an actual World War III kicking off?
Yes, that is one thing. I don't necessarily fear it, but it's one of those situations where they would definitely, China and Russia would team up. I mean, they're neighbors, so I could definitely see them just getting pissed off at us for all the tariffs and like all the restrictions, and just being like, hey, don't you think that the US is being a little unfair to us? Like, so I kind of try to see things from their point of view, just because it's just smart to do that, just so you can anticipate someone's next move. And it worries me that China is still being kind of bullied by the US, and when they make almost everything. And I mean, we only get like one side of the story all the time, but when if you ever visit China and you look at their culture and you just understand them business wise, they are innovating what the US is not innovating. So it is possible. I don't necessarily see a World War III, but if China and Russia start working together against the US, then they would win. And then the Ukraine situation is just unfortunate. It's kind of like when the US went into Iran or Afghanistan.
Afghanistan.
Yeah, like the whole Middle East, basically, when we did the same thing, not necessarily the same way, but we invaded after we were, they drove or flew the planes into our towers. So I don't know, like Russia didn't get involved in that, and it's kind of weird how like the U.S. is always like, we're going to get involved, we're going to do something about this, we're going to help you, but like at the same time, we're kind of not but our government is a little hypocritical with other countries, just because they do the same thing. And that's dangerous for us. This is us as citizens. We should feel like our government is making the right decisions for us, and I don't believe that they are, especially with their rhetoric and like the things that they say on the news. Not that China or Russia really pay attention to our news, but just the mainstream media programming people to have these ideals or have these just these thoughts in general, like collectively, it's powerful influentially, and it can cause a lot of damage to us, like just in general, when they're not being careful with what they say, or not necessarily careful, just I don't know, more politically intelligent. Like, what does that do for us to like think about Russia or think about China, when at the same time they're like taxing us all these like taxes, and they're spending our money on things that we actually don't want or need? It's things that like that they do like that, and then they get involved with Ukraine and give Ukraine all this money just because they hate Russia. I mean, it all boils down to they are competing with Russia in space and with China in space, and it's just a matter of time before like we're going to need a treaty before World War III happens.
Scott Shuthats in the chat. I read these comments because people listening to the podcast version, they can't see what's on the screen, but he says the Cold War turns hot in October or November. NATO fired first nuke, a cruise missile from the Ukraine. Well, that's definitely a scary thought. It seems like all the weapons we give them, all the things that we do over there, the way that we support them, support their economy, it just seems to piss off Russia and China more and more. And the idea that we might be actually, putting troops on the ground over there to help out even supply lines and, medics and things like that, or actually firing weapons from Ukraine. That's a scary thought. Raven, what do you think about the Ukraine conflict? Any thoughts on China entering the bear and the boar, so to speak?
Well, she brought up the original conflict was Afghanistan. We financed. I'm old, y'all. We financed and supplied Afghanistan to fight Russia. That was supposed to be Russia's Vietnam. We made it. We drug it out. We made it last longer. We did a lot of things in Afghanistan that caused Russia to expend a lot of men, a lot of resources. The idea, and I'm quoting Rumsfeld on this one, y'all. The idea was to create a Vietnam for Russia. Well, now with the Ukraine situation, we had the Minsk agreements that NATO nor the United States or any of the rest of them have upheld. And then we have people like Merkel, and I can't remember the other guy's name, who came out and said, hey, look, Zelensky said it too, but said, hey, look, we just used the Minsk agreement in order to get things staged so that NATO could expand. Well, that shows you right there that you can't trust somebody because they violated the Minsk agreement that they insisted upon. As far as China goes, man, we don't have any real industry in the United States anymore because our elitists have shipped all of our production to China. We don't have the industry to fight a war. It would have to be completely retooled. So I have no idea other than to say that historically, if you look at the buildup before World War II, say from 1921, 23 through 1938, we have just lived through that again from 2008 until today.
Definitely. I mean, me personally, I'm terrified of the situation because I just learned that they've been doing all this legislation in the background, and it turns out that they actually, I mean, I need to see more proof that this is actually true, but from what I've seen, it is true. They've raised the draft limit from like, I think it was 35 or it was 30 or 35. Now it's 65. So that means me being 40 and thinking I'm getting old and I'm past all that stuff. If we entered into World War III, I could literally still get drafted. And at that point, I'll have to like burn my papers and move to South America or something, because there's no way I'm letting my old freaking broken back self get drafted into a war. Hell no.
Well, and female draft too. Female draft as well, y'all.
Yeah, that would be really, really terrible in my opinion. Another topic I wanted to bring up, we are getting close to the end of the second hour, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Hollywood brainwashing. You know, they call it the Hollywood. They say that Satan lives in Hollywood. There's that movie, what's it called? American Satan. This kind of is very similar to this topic, but the idea that Hollywood is nothing but a vector of mind control and deception. Oh, Nina, what do you think of that? What do you think of the idea that Hollywood itself is evil and the devil lives there, and all these celebrities and all these actors and actresses, they're all getting involved in pedophilia and ritual abuse, and all these movies are trying to brainwash us? What do you think of that idea?
I think that, I mean, I was raised TV. I had a 16-year-old mom, like, that gave birth to me. So we were raised, my sisters and I, on a lot of television programming. A lot of it's good, and I don't think that it's necessarily evil, but there is a dark side to the programming that goes on, trying to brainwash or really just like direct people in certain ways, like influencing them to make certain decisions that they wouldn't normally make unless, you know, they were seeing that happen on programming. So Hollywood, like I said, it's like, it's not everybody, but there is a huge problem with sex trafficking of minors, and people not getting punished that are doing those things, you know, nearly as bad as people who are just like trafficking drugs. And it is in Hollywood, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere in the entire country. And the only way to like solve a problem like that is to address it at the beginning, where the cycle ends with the children and the programming. I mean, it needs to make people aware of these things that do exist out there that are evil, that do I don't know, program children to think like certain things are right or wrong, when they should just be educating. Like, I like Sesame Street. There's nothing like, you know, telling me that adults are like in charge of everything. It's like friggin' puppets. So I don't know. It's just like the creative ways to like teach kids at a young age to be aware of certain things and be just like live, I don't know, without getting drug into that industry, or without being a victim or victimized in that way.
Raven, what about you? Any thoughts on Hollywood mind control?
Well, you know, you've got that predetermination that's in the programming. You know, when you watch a movie 25 years old and it's showing you what's happening today.
Yeah.
But you know, the other side of what she was saying with the pedophilia and the human trafficking, you know, how much has been revealed over the last year between all the people doing the research, the Twitter files, the Epstein files have been released, and people just are shrugging their shoulders like, oh, okay. As long as the vast majority of people just shrug their shoulders and don't get outraged about it, then how are you going to stop it? That's what's frustrating to me.
Yeah, it's hard for people to get outraged against something that's literally just part of their childhood and just part of their world. And it's almost like we're also brainwashed to make fun of these topics and call them stupid. Like, if I was to bring up some of these topics, like Scott Shut Hats in the chat, he mentions Disney. If I got into like some of that creepy stuff surrounding Disney with some of my coworkers or friends, they'd immediately start making foil hat jokes and calling me crazy and stuff like that. I think everybody is part of this truth community. If we even want to call it that, we don't have to call it. We can call it the friends community. We can call it the paranormal community. We can just call it people that aren't stupid. There's so many different ways we can describe it other than use this truth name that's kind of been circumvented and undermined by a lot of people that maybe aren't fully truthful. So it can be kind of a turnoff. But I've heard it called sliders before, like this mental mind control they put on all of us, so that when a certain topic hits our mind, it just sort of slides out of the picture. It's like we're literally not even able to think about it. But we are getting to the end, towards the end of our second hour. I told Nina we'd just be doing like 45 minutes to an hour, so we are going a little bit over. It's very easy to do on this program. We almost always end up going over. But Nina, it's my understanding that you are also a musical artist. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your music?
My music is just like a hobby. It's not at all to like make money from it. It's to kind of like open the mind of the person that is reading the book. So all the songs coincide with the book. Each chapter has a different song. So it's kind of like a musical soundtrack, just to my book, the fiction novel, Thereal Chronicles. It's not published yet, but it's a fiction novel about 13 children that obtain powers. Basically, it's written for young adults to children. I mean, children are going to get very much excited about this. I feel like it'll open their minds, and it ties in all the different realms of religions around the world. So that's what the music is all about, and that's why most of it doesn't have lyrics. It has lyrics or like a poem with it, but the actual song that's composed or whatever and produced, it's just like instrumental, most of it.
All right. And like I said, we are approaching the end of the interview. I'm going to begin to let you guys go. I always like to have my guests step up on the podium one more time and just say whatever they would like to say, and follow that up with anything that they would like to plug. Raven, why don't you go first? Say whatever you'd like to say to my audience out there. You know the drill by now. And please plug whatever you would like.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Nina, for hanging out with me for an extra hour. I appreciate that. But the other thing I want to say to y'all is if you want to find me, you can find my main podcast site at Spreaker.com, but I am on all those repeater sites. So you just look for Raven Kiefer, no apologies, and you'll find me on the repeater sites, whichever one you like to use. It's Raven Kiefer NA at Twitter, and No Apologies Enough Said, which is my main podcast, on Instagram. And thank you all for hanging out with us. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. And thank you, Raven. Thank you very much. Always a treat to have you on this program, and I will talk to you next time, my friend.
Appreciate you.
Bye, Raven.
And Nina, now, of course, it is your turn. I want to go ahead and open things up. I'll let you finish up by saying whatever you would like to say to my audience out there. Please take as long as you would like, and follow that up with anything at all you would like to plug.
Okay. I just want to encourage everybody that listens to the program to definitely check out Thereal Chronicles, which is on my website, ninaamberrosehowell.wordpress.com. It's Thereal projects. So there's a game, there's in the making, and there's a fiction novel, and then there's poetry that's been published already, and of course the music. So definitely excited to share that with everybody. And then thank you, Daniel, for like inviting me. This has been a wonderful treat, like to hang out with you guys on Saturday. And that's pretty much it. Thank
awesome. You. I as well, I appreciate you coming on this program, and we definitely like to have you come on again in the future and catch up with whatever you are up to, and hopefully you'll come back and visit us again.
I definitely will. And well, I mean, you follow me on Twitter, right? So I'll be following you.
Yes, everybody follow Nina on Twitter as well. Visit her
Yes.
website. And Nina, once again, thank you very much for joining me and
Thank
Raven on
you.
this program. And you enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
You too.
All right. And there you have it. We are done with the interview phase of the show. I think that was very much fun, very different. We do like to mix things up and talk about different topics and have a wide variety of different guests on this program. And I also wanted to thank everybody who joined us in the chat. I notice more and more people congregating when we do these shows on Saturdays. I see more of the same faces showing up. I see new faces showing up. There's always good comments in the chat, and I absolutely love to see that happening. That tells me that this program is growing. It's reaching more people, and more people out there are deciding, hey, this is no big deal. I can participate in this. I can join the discussion. I can contribute, and I can give and I can take. So thank you once again. And remember, this would be a good time for me to remind everybody that this is a donation-based program. So when you donate to this program, and there's people that donate practically every month, and they donate a small amount. And I want to start off by just thanking everybody that's done that. Anybody that's donated anything at all, I want to just thank you. Thank you very much. You guys have helped me make ends meet. You have helped me afford equipment for the show. You've helped me pay my power bill. You literally have kept this show on the air, kept it on the internet. It's going on 10 years now? And every single one of you guys that has donated in the past, I just want to say a big thank you to, because you guys are what it's all about. Whether you're donating just once or you're donating every month, I I thank you for anything that you have put out there. Even if it was $1, $2, it's made a huge difference. And this program really is all about you. There's some things that I've been trying to accomplish. I've been trying to make this a show where I can do it like every day or at least multiple times a week. And that's not really possible when I'm working a full-time job, right? Because I'm tired and I have little time to do this program. I usually have to do it on a weekend. I spend one day doing errands and shopping and taking care of things around the house. And then it turns into, hey, how the heck am I going to do more than one show a week? It's not easy. But if I was able to make enough money through donations to put this program on every day, that's exactly what you would get. And just like I honored my promise of doing more shows, we're not up to 2 a week yet. I'm still working on that. I just haven't been able to make that time available. I'm working my butt off. But I want to be able to get to two shows per week soon. Just because it didn't happen right away doesn't mean that I have changed my mind, or I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to live up to that. Heck no. I fully intend to make this happen, because I can't break my back working my ass off for the rest of my life. I'm 40 years old. It's time for me to not have to work so hard, or at least not work so hard physically. I don't mind working hard behind this mic, because this is what I love to do. I love to research. I love to get behind this mic, and I love to talk to all the fascinating people out there that have some kind of truth to put out there, that have some kind of truth to share. And the idea that I could actually make this my main job and do this for a living, that's incredibly appealing for me. So please donate $5, $10. If you want to do more than that, great. I'm not going to say no, because it's all going to a good cause. It's all going to bring. This is like PBS. This is like the muscular dystrophy drive, right? I'm never going to go behind a paywall. I've already decided that's never going to happen, right? Because you only get to broadcast to the same people doing that. You don't bring anybody new in. I want there to always be new people coming in. And if I charge for this show, that wouldn't be possible. So many people do that, right? They put all this work in, they build up a following, they get like 10,000 people that are into their shit, and then they take 1,000 with them behind a paywall, and you never hear from them again. and they put out content for the people that bought into it, but it just trickles away, it goes away, and eventually they just take the money and they quit, right? That's not what we're doing here. That's not what this is about. This is about true enlightenment. This is about carrying the torch. This is about bringing the wisdom of the ages to the modern day. This is about bringing that ancient call forward. It's about hearing that ancient call and bringing that ancient spirit forward. And we're not going to do that behind a paywall. So please donate to End of Days Radio. Go to endofdaysradio.com. You can donate through PayPal, or you can donate Bitcoin. Nobody's done the Bitcoin thing yet. I know that the market's crashed. Not a whole lot of people are into the crypto at the moment, but you can donate crypto as well. That it is a really easy way to donate to the show. And pretty soon that might be what we're all doing. You know, this crypto bear market finally ends. We get back into a bull market. It starts getting popular again. What's this? From Placebo Rock. Priscilla Vogelbacher will make a great show. Trust me. Invite her to your show. I don't know who that is, but I like her name. She sounds like some kind of vampire or something, some kind of Illuminati vampire. So definitely. Let me write that down. Let's see here. You know, I hate to put the show on hold, but let's see here. Priscilla Vogelbacher. And if you have anybody that you want me to bring on the show, you should email me, or just, you know, let me know through some other way. Let me know on Twitter or something like that. But anybody can do that. Email me at daniel@endofdaysradio@gmail.com. That's Daniel endofdaysradio@gmail.com. My name, Daniel, then endofdaysradio@gmail.com. You can send me hate mail if you want. You can send guest recommendations. Yes, the Discord, it got shut down. We lost our Discord. We have nowhere to congregate. I lost touch with Logan. You know, we had to bring him on the show last week because there's no other way I could talk to him. Totally lost track of that guy, but we're reconnected now on social media, so that's a good thing. But there's nowhere really for us to congregate at the moment besides the chat box here on YouTube. And I don't want to get involved in anything else because I know it's just going to get shut down, right? They see us talking about certain things and it's not okay with big tech, and then they pull our plug. So do I really want to create, what's Doc Ram? You have to tell me more about that, Doc Ram. It's from the chat. But you know, I'm afraid to even start anything like that because people will just, because it's the theme of the show to talk about anything, people will talk about stuff that's going to get us shut down. And I can't control that. And I don't want to. I don't like censoring people. So people will start talking about certain things. You know, a lot of these truth platforms or these alternative social media things for truth, they get these dudes that show up that are all about white power and stuff like that. And then, oh, these are guest suggestions. Okay. But you know, people start talking about white power and stuff like that, and then they get kicked off of the Apple store and they get kicked out of the Google store. So if you are a part of these communities, please don't start in with that white power stuff. I mean, just for the sake of keeping this stuff up, right? Don't start talking about how Hitler was a good guy, or how the white people are being killed off. I mean, you know, there's probably some truth to that. I don't know. There seems to be like some evidence of that. Black people getting killed off, white people getting killed off. But you got it. If you're going to talk about that stuff, you got to do it in a way where it's not like you hate everybody else. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to project hate out there because that gets you shut down. You know, I admit I've started buying into some of that Nazi sort of white supremacy propaganda because I perceived it as alternative history. I perceived it as a truth. Okay, this is what was really going on. You know, these evil people were controlling the world, and these guys that were into Thor and all this stuff, they just wanted to fight against and all that. But at the end of the day, the truth is not that simple. What the Nazis were doing was pretty awful, right? There may have been more to it, but you can't say that these guys were good. You can't say Hitler was good. So what if he loved animals? So what if he did this or that? Or he was into painting. What he was doing was fascism, and it was white supremacy, and a lot of people were being killed. So there might be another perspective there, but to say that the Nazis were the good guys or that Hitler was good, that's just not true. And there's no reason to go into any community and project that stuff. That's how I feel about it. I'm not censoring you. I'm not telling you what to talk about. I'm just telling you how I feel. I've done that a lot of times on this program, just based on my own truth and my own journey and going through these different belief systems and eventually finding out, hey, this at the end of the day, it's another layer of deception. All this pro-Hitler, pro-Nazi stuff, it's just another layer of deception. These are not the good guys. They are the bad guys. They might have been getting controlled by even worse guys, right? We know that was going on. We know Hitler might have been a Rothschild, and there was this control coming through these secret societies, and the Nazis were kind of puppets for this other agenda that's still going on to this day, right? And there's still Nazis everywhere. There's Nazis in Ukraine. There's Nazis in our government. Skull and Bones. We've talked about it ad nauseum on this program. But we're not going to stop talking about Nazis. But that doesn't mean we want to join them or that we are Nazis or anything like that. They're definitely bad guys. The Skull and Bones behind me. That's not Nazi. That's pirate. Because I'm a pirate. Not that kind of pirate, but you know what I mean. Let's move on. I did get a piece of email. So I'm getting emails again. Thank you for anybody that's emailed me. This is from Jude Harris. She says, "Dear Daniel, thanks for finally putting out some content." You're welcome. "After all those promises, turns out you were not lying." No, I'm not a liar. "Good job ditching Howard Stern as well. He is a vile man indeed, and you should find your own style, not emulate his Hollywood Satanism." That's from Jude Harris. Thank you, Jude. I'm glad you wrote in because I can tell that you really get me. I can tell you that you get this program, and I can tell that you get my journey as somebody that was a major fan of this Howard Stern, but doesn't really, I don't feel like I relate to the guy anymore these days. He's not a truther. He despises the types of ideas I talk about on this program. He despises any sort of conspiracy or any sort of truth talk. He doesn't give it any merit. He says people that don't conform, they should all die off. He makes fun of us. He makes fun of other people. He's made a whole career off of making fun of people, putting them down, exploiting them, being nasty, being perverted. I don't think that there's anything positive about being a nasty and perverted person. I don't think there's anything positive about degrading people. I don't think that there's anything positive about just being a menace and being somebody that uses shock to get attention. That's one thing I've never done on this show. I've never used shock to get attention. Maybe early on, there's some things that were kind of questionable, but that's not this audience. That's not this crowd. I'd like to think that we, as a whole, are truly with the light, and we are about that higher knowledge and bringing back the old republic. Not giving into this decay, not giving into this fascism, not giving into this control, this blackness and darkness, and this veil that's being pulled over ancient knowledge and history and the existence of things like dragons and giants and Nephilim and vampires and mermaids and unicorns and satyrs and centaurs and dwarves and brownies and fairies and elves and orcs and giants and Tom Bombadils and ants like the tree people. And who am I forgetting? Ice giants, frost giants, race, ghouls, banshees. Come on, help me out here. Old ones, Cthulhu's, Leviathans. Like, all this shit's real, right? And you know what else is funny? So, actually, let's get to this in a second. Let's do our mind-blowing moment of the day. I'm going to try using this bottle as an instrument. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Shit. Mind-blowing moment of the day. I'm gonna say that that's Nina's quantum tunneling. I think that's a really fascinating subject. Definitely something going on there that is beyond like the basic level of psychic awareness or psychic abilities. That's getting into the real deep stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that's the mind blowing moment of the day. And shout out to the Seven Moons Red Blend, a very good wine that I've drank this whole bottle, obviously, and I love werewolves and I love the moon, so I keep this on my desk so I could look at it all the time. I got a few other things too. I mean, you guys have kind of seen some of my decorations. I got my Cthulhu cup. This was given to me as a gift a few Christmases ago, so very special to me. And then I have my skull cap. It's not an actual cat. It's not a cup made out of a skull. It's just a plastic cup that looks like a skull that I got from the Halloween store. But it's great to drink wine out of. It's really spooky. Like you could burn some incense and have this thing kind of full of red wine. It looks like blood. You can pretend like you're doing some kind of ritual, even though you're not, because you are of the light. I got this. This I think is from some pub somewhere, probably somewhere in Europe. Notice it's got like a family crest on there. It probably belonged to Winston Churchill, or maybe it belonged to Harry and Meghan. Who knows? But I love it. I love that design on there. You know, you can fill that up with beer and chug it, drink it all in one sip. I got this. It's a little shot glass dedicated to Australia. It says, "It's a bloody long way." Cool. I don't know why I'm showing you guys this stuff. I'm probably putting you to sleep. Anyways, let's move on, okay? So, as you guys know, not too long ago, I received a vision, so to speak. Not that it was a vision playing out in front of my eyes, but it was more like an auditory hallucination or a download or an auditory message. These things tend to happen just as I'm waking up. Like I'll open my eyes and I'll wake up and I'll get a message from this higher power. Whoever this higher power is, I don't really know, but I'll get information, I'll get tips, I'll get little tips about things that are going to play out or things going on in my life. But basically, what they said is that there, at some point in the future, a real life Godzilla is going to appear. I've talked about it on this program before because this is literally the warning that I got. But there's going to be some type of real life Godzilla. And, you know, we could look back in the mythology, in the ancient world, and see things such as the Leviathan, the Behemoth, the dragon in Revelations, just the existence of dragons in general, Saint George and the dragon, or the tale of Gilgamesh, right? Or the Book of Enoch, where these giants are hunting these great leviathans that exist in the waters. And then we know that there's all these skeletons, right? Like the stuff in the water is way scarier than the stuff that supposedly existed on the land. Like you have these lizard sea serpents. They look like dolphins / crocodiles, and they're literally like what 100 or more feet long, like 5 school buses long, like bigger than any whale, bigger than the megalodon. Right? We all know about the megalodon. There's a movie, The Meg. But these reptilian leviathans were way bigger than any of that stuff. Right? They were literal sea monsters, and people were even seeing them. The Hydra, that's another one. Thank you. People were even seeing ancient mariners. I don't mean Mariners, the baseball team, but ancient mariners were seeing stuff like this during their travels. They were seeing these giant serpentine leviathans. And these actually existed, and these giants in the past were hunting them. We know that because it's in this scripture, like the Book of Enoch, right? They were hunting these things. So, again, very good chance that a being of this nature could reemerge at some point. There was some stuff going around, the different disinformation vectors, if you want to call it that. But there was a rumor of I heard this through two different sources, but there was a rumor that there was some kind of large Leviathan type of reptilian creature that had reappeared somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, and it's sending out psychic messages. It sounds like something from a H.P. Lovecraft story, but um, there's just little bits of this stuff coming out more and more. There were the videos taken of these sounds that sound like wells in the sky. People are recording this stuff. It sounds like whoa, whoa. It's just coming out of the sky. People are calling it Project Bluebeam. Excuse me, I need some water. So basically what we're doing here is we're taking something that sounds completely fake, completely made up, completely fantasy, and we're looking at ways that it might actually be true or it might come true at some point in the future, right? When we think of the seven-headed dragon from Revelations, we see it's symbolizing seven kings or seven places of power, seven fallen angels, et cetera, et cetera. But what if it's just literally a seven-headed dragon, right? And the funny thing is, you know how I'm always talking about people kind of like, I don't want to say copying me, but there's a lot of people out there that get inspired by me, and they have programs and they always have this demand to come up with new interesting content, new interesting truth. And I don't know if it's because I put it out there on this program or if I put it out there on the social media. I've put it out on both, this Godzilla thing, but I see other people picking up the ball and running with it now. I see other truth programs talking about this Godzilla thing. And I'm not going to pretend like I created it, right? Because Jurassic Park, Godzilla, seven-headed dragon, this is something that's already part of the collective consciousness. Cthulhu, I didn't invent it, but I was given some kind of message to bring this to light, because that's what the forces of good use me for. They use me so I can come on this platform and put information out there that others might run with, right? And then they'll do their research and they'll do their studying, and a lot of this stuff will come back to me, and then I can take it and start churning it again and researching it and seeing what else I can come up with. So when people copy or run with stuff, go ahead, because you're playing right to my plan, baby. You are putting things into the think tank, and it's going to come back to me. So thank you. And please continue to put these ideas forward, because they don't belong to anybody, right? We're spreading the light. We're spreading the light of day. And if there was anything that I didn't want to put out there, I would simply keep quiet about it. And I assure you, I'm quiet about half of it. There's a lot of things I have not shared on this program. There's a lot of things that I have not shared on social media. And the reason why that is because I have had supernatural creatures approach me and tell me, you got to stop giving away information. You got to save it for your book. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So stay tuned for that. It's not my intention to tease or bait or anything like that. I'm still giving 50%, but I got to hold some of this stuff back. I hope you understand that. Also, Logan, popular topic. There was somebody that was getting a little bit freaked out by what Logan was doing on the program. Somebody that had mentioned that they were feeling some sort of supernatural effect from Logan staring into the camera, from him performing spells on the air, from him trying to get phenomena to work. There's been reports that people were affected by this, and part of me wants to say, don't let it get to you like that. Don't let it make you feel that way. But then another part of me is like, yeah, that's what happens when you use magic. I might not notice something right this second, but weeks from now, days from now, months from now, this force may make itself known. That's how it's always played out for me. And I told Logan, I said, be careful with this stuff, because I've been in your shoes. I've gone a little too far with this stuff myself, and I've gotten lost in it. Luckily, I'm back and I'm fine. I'm still well spoken. I'm still somewhat sane. I'm still doing a podcast once a week. I'm still maintaining my ability to function like a normal adult. But, when you open the doors to the abyss, sometimes something looks back at you. And if you're not prepared to do spiritual combat against these forces, they might see themselves in your life in some way where you are not aware of what they are and how they are affecting you, right? Um, and a lot of these demons, a lot of them are gods from the ancient world. And, how can you tell somebody it's bad to talk to Inanna or Isis or Ishtar if they are all the same being? How can you tell somebody it's bad to talk to the goddess of love and war, right? And then there's the fact that Yahweh in the Bible seems to have some kind of thing about circumcision and blood. People are making sacrifices of goats to him. He's sending the Israelites out to kill the Canaanites, just bloodshed left and right. He's making threats. He's carrying them out, right? There's some people literally believe that Yahweh is some kind of demiurgus, some kind of demonic force, and there's certain amount of evidence that shows that his behavior is in line with these other Anunnaki gods. And that's going to infuriate a lot of people, right? No, that's the God, the God of gods. That's the one, the creator. That's the one who created us. Yeah, maybe, or maybe not. It could be a case of mistaken identity. It could be that he is more like a demigod. It could be that the real Yahweh is somebody else. It could be an impersonation. There's so many different possibilities here. So why should I, as a thinking individual, say that it's okay to pray to Yahweh or summon Yahweh, but it's not okay to pray to Isis? You catch my drift here? Like, maybe we shouldn't be praying to anything. Maybe we should be praying just to source, if that kind of makes sense. Unless you believe that Yahweh is source. Placebo Rock. He is delusional, a drug addict who watches some conspiracies and he knows nothing about the occult. He can't sort his thoughts. Well, Placebo, I do appreciate your feedback. Me personally, I have to defend Logan a little bit because I don't think that that's all there is to it. I think that he is extremely open-minded, and there's pluses and minuses about that. Like, he might, because he's so open-minded, he might be able to tap into things that we're not, or he might get a little lost in his own thoughts sometimes. I think that we can use the analogy of the tribal cultures and people with schizophrenia becoming the tribal shamans and things of that nature. I think that there is a benefit to having the type of mind. I've used the term surreality many times, where there's reality as we see it, there's consensus reality, and then there's a world where it's more about art and more about opinion, where things are not quite so static, they're more dynamic. You could call it a co-creative state of affairs. And many people will say that the fourth dimension is exactly that. It is a more co-creative state of affairs, the astral plane. That's why when we dream, the things around us mirror what's happening inside, right? Because we're actually co-creating the reality that we're experiencing within the dream. That's why they say that the dream world and the astral plane are the same thing, because we are able to manipulate our surroundings within there. And there's people that are good at lucid dreaming that know how to create those little tags in their mind. So when they're dreaming, they're reminded that they are in the dream state and they're able to become more aware. And at that point, they're able to take more control of things, kind of like the movie Inception. And I'm starting to lose my voice. And people will hear me talk and they'll say, oh, he's just a retard, or, this guy's an idiot, or that's blasphemy. I totally get that. This is a program of heresy. This is a program of counterthought. And if I'm offending your belief system or your religion, a lot of people that get into the truth community or the conspiracy side of things, they want everything to fit in that biblical perspective, right? And as long as it does, they'll resonate with it and they will feel that it is true. I do feel that there's a great deal of truth there. I believe personally the Bible is truth. But you can take that truth and you can overreach with it, right? Because there's things that are happening in there that correspond, like the thing about Enki being actually the who saved Noah from the flood, right? In the Bible, it's kind of told a little bit differently. But what happens when we plug that back in there? The story changes a little bit, right? All the other gods mentioned in the Bible, like we can just read the Bible and have that perspective. But what happens when we start to look at these other cultures from the Bible and learn about the gods that are mentioned and learn about things that happen from different perspectives at the time? Like let's say we're not just looking at the perspective of the Israelites during the time, but we're going to look at the perspective from the Moabites in their god, Ashtar Kamash, right? I'm not worshiping these things. I'm not worshiping demons. I'm not telling you to make sacrifices to them, but I'm just saying what happens when we look at that perspective. And now Yahweh, he's like, he's more of a, when we look at it from that perspective, he's on more of an equal playing field with these other gods that he's telling nobody to worship, yet he needs human help to overtake their people, right? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like he's trying to shake these other gods. Like, oh, we went into the temple of Dagon, and the feet were broken off and the hands were broken off because Dagon is weaker than Yahweh, or the snake that Moses had, he threw it onto the ground and it ate the other snakes, and that proves Yahweh is more powerful. Okay, maybe. Or maybe these are all just different Anunnaki gods just competing for supremacy, like the history books and the records have always shown that they were doing. And I don't know this for sure. There's a lot of people that argue this point on their various channels and platforms and books and whatnot. And there's people that argue against it and they say, no, Daniel, anything besides the God of the Bible is a demon, right? If you are even entertaining any of that stuff, you are entertaining Satan's deception. And then it's like, okay, well, who's Satan then? Is it Enki? Is it Enlil? Or are they each other Satans? And their children have different enemies and different beings and gods that they would consider to be their Satan. What is the truth? Who knows? I'm not going to stop researching. That's why it's fun. If I knew all the answers, it would be boring. We'd be on to the next thing. We'd be collecting Pokemon cards and saying to hell with all this stuff. Okay. Circling back to dragons, I think another good point is the way that they call themselves the Grand Dragon in the KKK. Why would you call yourself a Grand Dragon unless you were connected to all this crap, right? So we know that the KKK are tied to what we would call the Illuminati, even though they're not the Illuminati. We've talked about this. These guys are fake Illuminati, but they're the dark side Illuminati, right? But we know that the KKK is connected to Freemasonry and Albert Pike and all these people, and yet they use terms like Grand Wizard or Grand Dragon, and they're obviously very anti-black, right? And they believe in this Jewish conspiracy, this Nazi ideology, which, as we've discussed, is not the full picture. But the fact that they use the term dragon and wizard, that says it all. And you hear these names repeated along with names like Maga, which is it's a witchcraft term. It literally means witch. You see these terms repeated and repeated again and again. And it has some kind of meaning, right? Ice Spice. So I'm on social media. I constantly see Ice Spice everywhere, right? So I go on YouTube. I check out some of Ice Spice's music videos. And she's great looking. I mean, she's very pretty. She's got a very a very voluptuous figure. That's the word I was looking for. Voluptuous. She's got freckles and and curly hair and like this caramel skin tone, and she's very pretty, and she's just immensely popular right now. Like her music videos have like 11,000 views, not 11,000, 11 million, 11, 12 million views. And I'm watching her videos, and I'm thinking, man, she's pretty, but her music sucks. Right? It just stinks. It's not catchy. It just sounds like she's talking like this. Like a lot of this newer style of rap music, it's very just like, oh yeah, I'm talking. I'm not rapping, but I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about? It's like that. So I'm not seeing any talent here. And I apologize if you're an Ice Spice fan and I'm offending you, but like a lot of these other singers, pop artists like Rihanna, a lot of her songs are catchy. She can actually sing. But then you have these other ones that just feel like they're being kind of forced on everybody. And that's what I feel like this is. I feel like this Ice Spice is just kind of being forced on everybody. I've maybe I need to go a little deeper into her catalog, but I just think it stinks. It's not catchy. It's not fun. It's just really bland and doesn't really, it doesn't make me want to smoke a joint and listen to it or anything like that. It just makes me want to turn it off or put it on mute and maybe listen to a different song while she's flexing around and all that. It's just another one of these things from the cabal. It's another one of these stars that are handpicked and they're forced on everybody. They're not coming up through the system organically. Like, I don't know her. I don't know what her background is, but I constantly see these bots on social media talking about how great Ice Spice is. And it's just more evidence of the fakeness of the music industry and of Hollywood, and that if you just hire people to go out and say somebody's great and you constantly pump and promote them, and if they're physically attractive, then that's all you need, right? Forget talent. There's no more talent. And I'm probably going to offend a lot of people by saying this, but I feel the exact same way about Taylor Swift, right? She's pretty. Some people say she's a man. I don't know about that, but she's got all these hit songs. She's got all these fans. I think she came up through the country music scene, but I can't think of one of her songs that is catchy, that makes me want to listen to it again. I don't even know the name of one of her songs. And it's not because I don't like that musical style. Like I like Jewel. I think Jewel's freaking amazing. Like, that's talent right there. Like, I could listen to Jewel all day. She has catchy songs. She has a great voice. She has talent. But who the hell is Ice Spice? And why do so many people like Taylor Swift? Is this a matter of opinion? So somebody's asking me about Pink Black. I'm not sure what Pink Black is. I'm going to Google it real quick. Well, I see that there's a Korean group called Blackpink. Is that what you mean, Blackpink? Or is this the singer Pink? I don't know. I probably shouldn't even talk about pop culture because that's not what this show's about. But on this wrap up portion of the show where I just come on here and I vent about stuff, I'm not really that picky about what I talk about because it's basically just anybody that's still listening and has not turned off me ranting yet is still listening. But obviously the content that I want to really appeal to most of the listeners out there, that's already done and passed in the first couple hours of the show. So I don't mind mixing in a little pop culture stuff, especially because pop culture is basically mind control, right? It's the stuff that we're forced to like and the stuff that wants us to think a certain way, like Lil Nas X. Yeah, I think we all know what that's about. Harry and Meghan are still out there acting like imbeciles. I swear, these kids, if you want to call them that, or they act like kids, but they act like they're both raised inside of a bubble. Like, they say the most ridiculous, simplistic sort of stuff, and they constantly act lost. Like, I'm surprised nobody's just gone and tried to like rob them or something like that, or taken advantage of them. Maybe that's what Oprah did. Maybe she took advantage of them, but they seem totally lost, like the bubble kids that came out of their attic finally. They're just like, what? They constantly come out with this dumb crap. If they would both just not say anything, they would look so much more intelligent right now. But they every time they say these ridiculous comments, they're just feeding into the hate, right? They're giving the people that hate them more fuel. And there's just loads of this stuff. People are so into this, right? There's the people that are all about the royals, and then there's the people that hate the royals, and then there's the people that say Harry's some kind of clone. Like there was a first Harry, and then there was the Harry that they replaced him with, like maybe when he came back from the war or something like that. And they're cousins. I've said that on this program many times. Just because she's black and he's white doesn't mean they're not related. They are. They're literally incestual kissing cousins. And that's probably why a lot of those royals are so damn ugly, and they keep passing on these like traits like the Habsburg chin and stuff like that. I mean, not that I'm like some kind of freaking model or something. I don't think I'm a model or anything like that. In Megan, she's obviously very pretty, but they're incestual. They're kissing cousins. That's disgusting. Like, do we really want to sit there and watch miniseries about these like bubble kids that are freaking closely related, and they have no clue what's going on, and they're just going on about this like terrible treatment that they underwent, and they're running out of money. They constantly need money. It's kind of goofy, right? Camilla, I believe, has reemerged. Camilla, the woman that Prince Charles said that he wishes that he was her tampon. Prince Charles constantly brags about being descended from Vlad Dracula, right? Dracula. He brags about being his descendant, and then he's saying that he wishes that he was Camilla's period pad or her Kotex pad or something like that, or a tampon or something like that. Like, do we need any more evidence that this guy's a vampire and these people are vampires? And now they're saying Camilla's going to be the queen. That ugly woman, she's going to be your queen, and you have no problem with that? I would be trying to block this. They're cheaters, for one thing. They're terrible human beings. They're uglier than sin, right? They're lucky that their kids, that they're lucky that I mean, not that it's all about people's looks. I know I probably sound extremely shallow here, but these two are fucking ugly, right? And this is who everybody's getting behind. These hideous, inbred perverts, vampire perverts. People are getting behind this. It's time to stop this stuff. Yes, Scott Shut Hats in the chat. He says, "Real manly looking lady." Exactly. That's who you want to be your queen? Boy, they better get the poison out or something. I'm sure they'd rather have what's her name, Kate, be the queen. They're gonna have to do some poisoning of the tea or the cake or something like that. The pie is gonna have to be dry. They're gonna have to do something about this. Not that I'm advocating anything of that nature. I'm just joking, right? I did want to talk about Stargates a little bit. I know we're running kind of long. This isn't going to be a 5-hour show today. I actually do work tomorrow, but we kind of talked a little bit about this first, and earlier, I should say, and I'm hearing different information coming out there. I keep a close eye on the truther world, so to speak, and I'm realizing that Stargates are just way more complicated than I ever realized. I'm hearing now that our sun might actually be the Stargate, right? Like, somehow you got to take this device and aim it at the sun, and the sun literally opens up, and you go through the sun into another place. That's a trippy thought. And to kind of back that up, there's all these different, there's this footage and there's these pictures of the sun. I don't know if this stuff is real. I'm assuming that it is. And there's these giant ships that look like they're surrounding the sun and that they're coming out of the sun, like spaceships that are using the sun as an actual portal. And there's things that make sense about that. Like a black hole is supposed to be a sun that's starting to implode. I believe a brown dwarf star is one of the stages of this happening. So our sun might literally be some kind of portal. Our way of understanding things might be totally different. And you have the fact that in the book of Enoch, stars are described as windows to the heavens. So if a star is a window to the heavens, then the sun could be a portal. And these huge objects that are seen going in and out of the sun might actually be traveling to a different reality. They could be going into another dimension. They could be going to a different part of the universe if you believe in space and all that. And then you have the energy factor, because they say to travel through time or travel long distances, you need the equivalent of like 50 nuclear bombs, something like that. And that's what the sun is. Energetically, it's like large, well-crafted antique mirrors. So those are the portals, the antique mirrors. That's how you go into you go through the wardrobe, right? You go into Narnia. Don't even get me started on Narnia. We've been down that road before. Ooh, deep rabbit hole, deep rabbit hole. Yeah, we're getting smarter here. Every week we get a little smarter. We're evolving with each other. But you know, I don't have much else to say on this episode. I appreciate you guys turning up, and I want to say thank you to Nina and thank you to Raven for joining me today. Having the two of them on just created a great program. I'm very proud of the show. It was a lot of fun, and we got some good stuff up ahead. We're gonna actually have Logan come on again. I'm not sure when. I got a schedule with him, but next week we are going to be talking to, pardon me, Dr. Robert. And Dr. Robert, he's a mentalist and a magician who performs feats that apparently demonstrate extraordinary mental powers, such as mind reading. And he gets into a lot of other topics as well. But I'm excited. It's the first time I've ever had a mentalist on this program. I think it's a great follow-up to Nina and what we were talking about with her. I invite you all to join me once again. We're going to get back into it. That's going to be a little bit earlier. That'll be at 2 p.m. next Saturday, Pacific Standard Time. And then I've got some other ideas and other names I'm floating around. So don't think that this is the end. This is just the beginning. I don't care how long this show's been on. Sometimes you got to hit the reset button. And I think of it as seasons, right? We got season 1, season 2. We're headed into another season. It's like The Simpsons. It's the show that never goes off the air. They just keep renewing it and renewing it. And different characters come, different characters go. Some topics are hot for a while, then we get tired of them. But this is a organic, participatory reality show. So you are welcome to become part of the fun. That's actually what I prefer. Don't feel shy, because that's not the type of program that this is. It was like that. It was all about having the big guests, you know, these like coast to coast level guests or these mainstream guests and stuff like that. But that got old after years and years of trying to get that hot guest, you know, oh my God, I'm talking to a celebrity. I'm talking to somebody that's like sort of famous. It gets old. Who cares? Nobody's famous. Jesus Christ is more famous than any of them. So who cares? It's not about that. This is about you. This is about the individual truther, the 144,000 light bringers that are going to travel through the sun into the holy kingdom, or something like that. Season of the Witch. There you go. Isn't it what's that guy's name? Donovan? Doesn't he sing that, Season of the Witch? Donovan, who is super into the occult. But you know what? I'm tired and I'm ready to end things. So I'm going to go ahead and play our outro music. Remember to go to endofdaysradio.com. Remember to write me at danielendofdaysradio.com. Remember to follow me at Ninja Shoes, End of Days Radio on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. subscribe to our channel on YouTube, End of Days Radio. Join us on Saturdays, around 2 or 3 o'clock for a live show. Get us on Spotify, get us on iHeartRadio, get us on Stitcher, get us on BitChute, get us on Facebook. Don't get us on Discord. We've been kicked the F off of Discord, so you will not get us on there. And we will never have anything to do with Discord ever again, because they are not open-minded, because they cannot see, because they are not see. They're fascist. They're all about peer pressure and control and lies. And we want nothing to do with them. Fuck you, Discord. Fuck you. Sorry about my language, but fuck you. Go fuck yourselves. Never again, never again, never again. Die, die. Go the way of the dinosaurs. I hope nobody uses you ever again. I hope something better comes out with more open-minded people. But until then, I will talk to you guys next week. You have a great time out there. I love you, and good night and goodbye.
From the beginning.